Chapter 1399. Promotion on the spot Kacha. As soon as the white bead entered his mouth, Ningyu shook it gently and crushed it with his teeth. Rumble! After the white pearl shattered, a terrifying and berserk energy rushed towards Ningyu's throat and drilled into his body. With so much energy entering his body, Ningyu felt a tearing pain all over his body. Even a 7th-grade human sovereign like Ningyu almost couldn't bear the pain. If he hadn't used the spirit transformation art to stabilize the raging energy in his body at the critical moment, his internal organs would have been broken. Under the guidance of the spirit transformation technique, the energy in Ningyu's body became more and more stable. Although it was still a little violent, it was a lot better compared to the beginning. Enter. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu controlled the energy in his body and transferred it to his sea of consciousness. Ningyu wanted to advance to the 8th-grade human sovereign realm, but he was well aware that he couldn't be impatient. He would take it one step at a time. In any case, the energy in his body was sufficient to support him until he reached the 8th-grade human sovereign realm. Damn it! In the berserk zone, Tian Mingtao's face alternated between black and white. While he was fighting the demonic beasts, Ningyu was cultivating in the deepest part of the forest. After cursing under his breath, Tian Mingtao made a bold decision. As he fought with the demonic beasts, he moved towards Ningyu. Tian Mingtao was very confident in his own strength. As long as he could get close to Ningyu, he was confident that he could kill Ningyu in one move. You're still thinking about cultivating even now. At the entrance of the Ascension Pagoda's 10th floor, D. Potion's eyes turned cold when he saw Ningyu's actions. After thinking about it, D. Potion turned to Grandmaster Xingyun and said, "Ningyu was able to enter the Yuzuan Pagoda and reach the 10th floor. It must be because of your help. I order you to bring Ningyu here." Grandmaster Xingyun slightly raised his eyelids and looked at D. Potion before closing his eyes again. "You're courting death." Grandmaster Xingyun's actions made D. Potion furious. He took a step forward and slapped Master Xingyun's face with his right hand. Buzz! Just as D. Potion's palm was about to land on Grandmaster Xingyun's face, a faint light suddenly appeared around Grandmaster Xingyun. "Stop!" When the light appeared, Slaughterer was alarmed. He hurriedly said, "If you want to die, don't drag us down with you." Whoosh! D. Potion's right hand stopped 10 centimeters away from Grandmaster Xingyun's face after being called by Luomo Demon Slayer. "You have to give me an explanation." D. Potion's expression was extremely unsightly. Master Xingyun's reaction was obviously that he wanted to self-destruct. If it wasn't for Butcher's timely reminder, the moment his right hand slapped Master Nebula's face would have been the moment Master Nebula self-destructed. All of them had participated in the task of sealing Master Xingyun. He and Jin Xinghai were responsible for sealing Master Xingyun's primordial qi, completely sealing Master Xingyun's martial arts strength. Butcher, on the other hand, was responsible for sealing Master Xingyun's soul power. The strength of Butcher's soul power was the same as Master Xingyun's, having reached the level of liquefaction elixir. On the 9th floor of the Transcendence Tower, Butcher once patted his chest and guaranteed that there would be no problem with his seal. Now that there was a problem with the seal, and there was almost a big mistake, D. Potion and Jin Xinghai were very unhappy. If it wasn't for the fact that they were afraid of Butcher's soul power, D. Potion and Jin Xinghai would have joined forces to deal with him. There's nothing to explain. You will never know how strong one's soul power is at the level of liquefaction elixir. Butcher said faintly, not taking D. Potion's threat seriously. In fact, it was no wonder that Butcher's soul power had reached the level of liquefaction elixir, and his cultivation was also at the mid-stage of Sky Supreme. D. Potion would definitely not use his trump card now, so there was no need to explain anything to him. Good, very good. D. Potion gritted his teeth. Both of you stop talking. Jin Xinghai seemed to care about the overall situation and became the peacemaker. We're on the same side. Before we find that thing, it's best not to have any internal strife. Humph! Di Tian snorted coldly and turned his head away, no longer looking at Butcher. Butcher shrugged and did not look at Di Tian either. Is he really related to my master? The quarrel between Butcher and the others did not affect Master Xing Yun. At this moment, his eyes slightly narrowed as he stared at Ning Yu, who was sitting cross-legged, and murmured, "If I'm not wrong, he should also be cultivating the spiritual transformation technique." The reason why Master Xing Yun knew about the spiritual transformation technique was because Ning Yu wanted to teach him this technique 20 years ago. However, Master Xing Yun had cultivated another technique back then, so he did not choose to switch to the spiritual transformation technique. Although he did not switch to the spiritual transformation technique, Master Xing Yun could tell at a glance when he saw the spiritual transformation technique. Boom! In the depths of the Berserk Zone, Ning Yu was fully immersed in cultivation. Under the guidance of the spiritual transformation technique, a steady stream of energy entered his sea of consciousness. 10 minutes passed. After 10 minutes, a muffled sound suddenly came from Ning Yu's sea of consciousness. After the muffled sound, Ning Yu did not even open his eyes and continued to operate the spiritual transformation technique, guiding the energy into his sea of consciousness. 7th grade intermediate human supreme realm? Not bad. Others could not tell that Ning Yu had advanced to 7th grade human supreme realm, but the golden-haired girl saw it clearly. Although the energy contained in the white bead was terrifying, the fact that Ning Yu could advance to 7th grade intermediate human supreme realm from 7th grade human supreme realm in such a short time was enough to show how powerful Ning Yu was. This guy. Could it be that he's as perverted as me? Xiao He, who was beside the golden-haired girl, swallowed a mouthful of saliva and looked at Ning Yu differently. Back then, the golden-haired girl's speed of advancement was this terrifying. If Ning Yu could also advance from 7th grade human supreme realm to 8th grade human supreme realm in such a short time, wouldn't that mean that Ning Yu was as monstrous as the golden-haired girl? As terrifying? Thinking of this, Xiao He could not help but shiver a few times. One golden-haired girl was hard enough to deal with. If Ning Yu was added to the mix, the consequences would be unimaginable. Sita, Xiao He's face, looked downcast and listless. Drip, drip. Time was ticking away. In the Berserk Zone, Tian Mingtao was fighting with the demonic beasts while charging towards Ning Yu. As time passed, the distance between Tian Mingtao and Ning Yu was getting closer and closer. On the other hand, Ning Yu's eyes were tightly shut and there was no change in his expression. Bam! After another 10 minutes, another muffled sound came from Ning Yu's sea of consciousness. When this sound came out, a terrifying aura suddenly exploded from Ning Yu's body. This aura had obviously reached the 7th grade advanced human supreme realm. Feeling the aura from Ning Yu's body, Di Tian and the others in the distance were dumbfounded. What the hell, was this a monster? Chapter 1400. The Supreme Doppelganger took action. Humph. Ning Yu, so what if you've reached the 8th grade human sovereign realm? If I wanted to kill you, it would be as easy as taking something out of my pocket. Di Tian and the others exclaimed, but Tian Mingtao didn't. There was only one thought in Tian Mingtao's mind, and that was to reach Ning Yu's side as soon as possible and give Ning Yu a fatal blow. All the distracting thoughts in Tian Mingtao's mind were cast aside, and he even used his trump card. Pucci. After bringing out his trump card, the 8th grade Earth Sovereign Realm demonic beasts were so weak in Tian Mingtao's hands. Fortunately, every time a demonic beast died, another demonic beast would take its place. Otherwise, Tian Mingtao would have already arrived at Ning Yu's side. 10 more steps. Tian Mingtao silently counted his steps as he moved forward. Although Tian Mingtao was getting closer to Ning Yu didn't take it to heart. Right now, Ning Yu's mind was completely focused on devouring and refining the energy so that he could reach the 8th grade human supreme realm as soon as possible. To be honest, the energy inside the white bead was beyond Ning Yu's imagination. Initially, Ningyu thought that he could only reach the 8th grade human sovereign realm after refining the energy in the white pearl. But now, it looked like he might have hit rock bottom. The energy within the white bead could at least support his cultivation to the early stage 8th grade human supreme martial artist. It was even possible for him to soar to the middle stage 8th grade, or even the late stage 8th grade human supreme martial artist. As the enemies grew stronger, Ningyu couldn't care less anymore. As long as he could improve his cultivation as soon as possible, he would do it. Ningyu had completely forgotten about his unstable strength and impulsiveness. Advancing was the most important thing right now. 10 steps, 9 steps, 8 steps. Tian Mingtao was getting closer and closer to Ningyu, but Ningyu was completely unconcerned. 5 steps. When Tian Mingtao was 5 steps away from Ningyu, Ningyu abruptly opened his eyes and another muffled sound rang out from his sea of wisdom. Bang! 7th grade peak human supreme martial artist. With a muffled sound, Ningyu's cultivation had also advanced to the peak 7th grade human supreme realm. In just a few dozen minutes, Ningyu had advanced from initial 7th grade human sovereign to pinnacle 7th grade human sovereign. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't shocked. However, Di Patian and the others could no longer exclaim. In fact, they even began to fall silent. After all, Ningyu's talent in the martial Dao was countless times higher than theirs. Advancing from a 7th grade initial phase human sovereign to a 7th grade pinnacle human sovereign in just over 20 minutes would probably be hard to find even in the vast sky demon territory. Ningyu couldn't have really advanced to the 8th grade sovereign realm, right? Jean Yi opened her mouth and said, "Fortunately, his attainments in the soul aren't that deep otherwise." "His attainments in the soul are not very high?" Demon Slayer interrupted Jean Yi and said, "That's because you've only reached the level of transforming energy into liquid. If you've reached the level of transforming energy into a core, then you wouldn't be saying such words." Jean Yi was dumbfounded. Could it be that Ningyu's attainments in the soul force were also that terrifying? Ignoring Jean Yi's expression, Demon Slayer came to the side of Di Patian and Jin Xinghai and said in a solemn voice, "We have to make a move. We can't let Ningyu advance to the 8th grade sovereign realm." "Why?" Di Patian and Jin Xinghai were slightly stunned as they asked in doubt. "There's no why. I just want to tell you that Ningyu isn't simple. That little black and the golden-haired girl beside him aren't simple either." Demon Slayer's expression turned grave as he continued, "Just now, the golden-haired girl said that Tian Mingtao is in some sort of berserk region. Furthermore, she said that Little Black is the protector of some sort of berserk region. She wants Ningyu to replace Little Black as the protector to teach Tian Mingtao a lesson." Although Di Patian and the rest had heard what the golden-haired girl said, they didn't take it to heart. It wasn't realistic for an Earth Supreme girl to say that she was a protector and even want Ningyu to teach Tian Mingtao a lesson. Therefore, they didn't take it to heart. Now that they heard Demon Slayer's words, they immediately understood. This was the 10th level of the Transcendence Pagoda, and anyone that could enter the 10th level wasn't simple. That also meant that the golden-haired girl, Little Black, might have already entered the 10th level. It was rumored that there were many treasures and opportunities in the 10th level. Who knows, those treasures and opportunities might all be obtained by the golden-haired girl. "We can't be rash. We have to think of a foolproof plan." Seeing how eager Di Patian and Jin Xinghai were, Demon Slayer couldn't help but warn, "We can't enter the berserk region with our main bodies. Let's try with our clones first." As he spoke, Demon Slayer's silhouette gradually turned blurry. Not long later, Demon Slayer split into two, turning into two Demon Slayers. Whoosh! The Demon Slayer on the left stomped on the ground and his silhouette shot out, charging into the berserk region. Clones. Seeing Demon Slayer's actions, Di Patian and Jin Xinghai also brought out their clones and entered the berserk region. The three of them were heavenly sovereigns, and even Jin Xinghai and Demon Slayer were at the middle phase heavenly sovereign realm. To bring Ningyu out of the Berserk region, the clones that Dipatian and Demon Slayer brought out had a fighting strength of 30% of their main bodies. 30% of a Heavenly Sovereign's fighting strength was enough to kill an ordinary Pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign. Russell. Just when the 3 Heavenly Sovereign clones entered the Berserk region, a sudden change occurred. 3 powerful demonic beasts tore through space and blocked the path of the 3 clones. Half-step Heavenly Sovereign? Seeing the sudden appearance of the demonic beasts, Dipatian and Demon Slayer were stunned. The clones that they brought out only had 30% of their main body's fighting strength, and they weren't confident in facing a half-step Heavenly Sovereign demonic beast. But even if they weren't confident, they still had to go. Rumble. A battle instantly broke out in the Berserk region. The shockwaves from the clash between the clones and the demonic beasts spread out in all directions. Buzz. Buzz. Fortunately, there was a transparent barrier at the edge of the Berserk region that absorbed the shockwave. Otherwise, the entire 10th floor of the Ascension Pagoda might shake. Because Tian Mingtao was in the Berserk region, the shock waves from the clash between the clones and the demonic beasts affected him. Originally, he was only 5 steps away from Ningyu, but now, he was 10 steps away from Ningyu. "You're ruining my plans." Tian Mingtao didn't dare to voice his anger. He could only desperately walk toward Ningyu. But every time he was 5 steps away from Ningyu, the shock waves from the clash between the sovereign clones and the demonic beasts would push him back 5 steps. 10 steps, 5 steps, back and forth, making Tian Mingtao feel like his head was about to explode. "I don't believe it," Tian Mingtao gritted his teeth. However, Tian Mingtao's voice came to an abrupt halt halfway through his sentence. Crack. On the other side, Potion's sovereign clone was careless and was struck in the head by a half-step Heavenly Sovereign demonic beast, dying on the spot. Dipatian spat out a mouthful of blood when his clone died. The clone that Dipatian had brought out was no ordinary clone. Chapter 1401. Chapter 1401. Chapter 1401 8th Grade Sovereign. Buzz. After Potion's sovereign clone died, the quasi-heavenly sovereign demonic beast that fought with him also turned into an afterimage and disappeared. Damn it! Seeing the half-step heavenly supreme demonic beast disappear, Dipatian wasn't excited. On the contrary, he cursed inwardly and quickly took out a white pellet and tossed it into his mouth. Potion's pale complexion only slightly improved after the pellet entered his stomach. Jin Xinghai 2mo, be careful. Although his sovereign clone had been killed, Dipatian still reminded him. Right now they were grasshoppers on the same rope. They were bound together for good or bad. If they couldn't pass through the Berserk region, they would be stuck here. They had spent so much effort to reach the 10th level of the Ascension Pagoda, and they were about to obtain the pellet, but they couldn't advance any further. Dipatian and the rest couldn't wait to kill Ningyu. As soon as Potion's reminder fell, Jin Xinghai, who was beside him, spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. His complexion became abnormally pale. After Potion's supreme clone died in battle, Jin Xinghai's supreme clone also died in battle. Buzz. Just like before, the demonic beast that fought with Jin Xinghai's sovereign clone also turned into an afterimage and disappeared. It's dangerous. What the hell are those demonic beasts? Why are they so powerful? Jin E and the overwhelming pill demon's faces turned grave with the death of 2 sovereign clones. At this point, they could only place their hopes on 2mo. Whether it was soul force or martial Dao cultivation, 2mo was the strongest amongst them. If even 2mo couldn't succeed, then they might not be able to pass through the Berserk region today. As time passed, 2mo's sovereign clone unleashed a shocking power that forced the half-step heavenly supreme demonic beast to retreat. Crack! Suddenly, the Devil Slayer's sovereign clone opened his mouth and shot out a ray of cold light. Soul pellet. The strength of 2mo's soul force had already reached the level of liquid pellet. When he brought out the sovereign clone, the demon slayer had held back and placed a soul core in the clone's body. The speed of the soul core was very fast. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived before the monster and, to everyone's astonishment, struck the monster's head. A crisp cracking sound rang out. The outcome did not exceed the expectations of Slayer and the others. Under the attack of the soul pellet, the half-step heaven's sovereign demonic beast suddenly exploded. You succeeded? That demonic beast has been killed. Good, good, good. Seeing the half-step heavenly sovereign demonic beast being killed, Deepatian and the rest were briefly stunned before they burst into laughter. In their view, the death of a half-step heavenly sovereign meant that they could use this method to pass through the berserk zone. Something's wrong. However, this excitement disappeared as quickly as it came. In the blink of an eye, space suddenly cracked before Demon Slayer's sovereign clone and another quasi-heavenly sovereign realm demonic beast appeared. I can't believe it! The sudden change caused Deepatian and the others to curse out loud. One was killed and another was coming? Could it be that there were endless demonic beasts like Tian Mingtao? Demon Slayer's expression was extremely unsightly. If it was really as they thought, then they could pack up their things and go back. They would never be able to pass through the berserk zone in their lifetime. Russell. Right at this moment, the demonic beasts that fought Tian Mingtao all tore through the void and disappeared. What's going on? Why did all those grade 8 Earth sovereign demonic beasts suddenly disappear? That doesn't make sense. Could it be that as long as we have the upper hand, we can force the demonic beasts to retreat? Deepatian and the others were very confused. I know. Demon Slayer's expression was solemn as he said in a deep voice, Tian Mingtao lasted in the berserk zone for half an hour, so all the demonic beasts disappeared. The demonic beasts will disappear as long as he can last for half an hour? Deepatian, Jin Xinghai, and the others revealed doubtful expressions. That's right. Demon Slayer nodded. Can your Paragon doppelganger last for half an hour? Deepatian and the others asked again. It won't be possible this time. Let me make some preparations. Demon Slayer sat down with his legs crossed and began to create soul cores with his soul energy. It might seem difficult to last for half an hour with his sovereign clone, but it was nothing to Demon Slayer. His soul energy had reached the level of liquid core. As long as he prepared a few more soul cores, he would be able to kill the demonic beasts when his sovereign clone was in danger. In other words, the more soul cores he had, the longer he could last in the berserk zone. Crack. Since the Demon Slayer had given up his control over the sovereign clone, his sovereign clone was quickly killed by the demonic beast. In an instant, the berserk zone became quiet. Deepatian and the others had ugly expressions after losing 3 sovereign clones in a row. Fortunately, Tian Mingtao's side was stabilized. Now, Deepatian and the others had their attention on Tian Mingtao. Be careful. Deepatian reminded Tian Mingtao not to be careless. Don't worry. Tian Mingtao took a deep breath and walked towards Ningyu step by step. Actually, Tian Mingtao didn't need Deepatian's reminder. After all, Tian Mingtao didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. Ningyu, I'll give you a chance to live now. Not long after, Tian Mingtao arrived in front of Ningyu and stopped 3 steps away from Ningyu. Tian Mingtao didn't attack immediately. Instead, he said in a deep voice, as long as you open your mind and let me control you, I can spare your life. Blackie, go and kill him. He's going too far. The blonde girl flew into a rage. Tian Mingtao was arrogant in front of her and bullied Ningyu. It was obvious that he didn't care about her. Even if her aunt and uncle could endure it, she couldn't. Grandaunt, can we stop fooling around? Blacka lowered his voice and said. He passed the first test of the berserk zone. As long as he can pass Ningyu's test, he can enter and leave the berserk zone at will. Pass Ningyu's test? Didn't he have to pass you? You're the guardian of the berserk zone. The blonde girl was puzzled. Did you forget that you said to let Ningyu fight on my behalf? Blackie hurriedly explained. Boom. Before Black could finish his words, Ningyu, who was in front of him, suddenly opened his eyes. An extremely terrifying aura emanated from Ningyu's body and soared into the sky. 8th grade Human Supreme. After half an hour of cultivation, Ningyu finally advanced to 8th grade Human Supreme. Moreover, judging from the aura emanating from Ningyu's body, Ningyu's vitality was comparable to an ordinary peak 1st grade Earth Supreme. It could even reach the level of some weak 2nd grade Earth Supreme. Not many people would believe that an initial 8th grade human sovereign's origin chi was comparable to a weak 2nd grade Earth sovereign. Chapter 1402. Chapter 1402. Chapter 1402 Flames. So what if you're an 8th grade human sovereign? I'll kill you all the same. Tian Mingtao didn't care about Ningyu's cultivation. His goal was to kill Ningyu and turn Ningyu into ashes. Even if Ningyu advanced to the Earth Supreme Realm, he still wouldn't be his match. Die! Tian Mingtao clenched his right fist and dashed out. Originally, Tian Mingtao was only 3 steps away from Ningyu. Coupled with the fact that he had pushed his speed to the limit, he arrived before Ningyu in an instant. His fist brought along an extremely violent Yuan Qi gale as it slammed towards Ningyu's head. Obviously, Tian Mingtao didn't want to let Ningyu go. He wanted to kill Ningyu and leave no chance of survival. Fuse! At the critical moment, Xiao Hei's figure flashed and turned into an afterimage, instantly entering Ningyu's body. Swish! As soon as Xiao Hei entered Ningyu's body, a terrifying aura burst out from Ningyu's body. 8th grade Earth Supreme Realm. In a short period of time, Ningyu's aura had soared from 8th grade Human Sovereign to 8th grade Earth Supreme Realm. Without a doubt, Xiao Hei had temporarily given the Berserk Zone Guardian's status to Ningyu. You're playing tricks. Although Ningyu's aura had reached 8th grade Earth Supreme Realm, Tian Mingtao still didn't retreat. Instead, he quickly threw out a punch with his right fist. Bang! Ningyu suddenly stood up and clenched his right fist, colliding with Tian Mingtao's fist. When the two fists collided, Ningyu took dozens of steps back before he could stabilize himself. On the other hand, Tian Mingtao only took 3 steps back. The difference between the two was obvious. Kid, in the end, the borrowed power isn't your own. Twisting his neck, Tian Mingtao eerily said, I will let you know how powerful a genuine 7th grade Earth Sovereign is. Is that so? I would like to experience it. Ningyu's expression was indifferent. No emotions could be seen on his face. You're courting death. Tian Mingtao was enraged. He rushed out again and used his soul force. For some reason, Tian Mingtao felt that Ningyu was a little special, so he wanted to end the battle quickly. He could not give Ningyu any chance. Facing Tian Mingtao, who was charging at him, Ningyu did not make any response. Instead, he slowly closed his eyes. What happened? Seeing Ningyu close his eyes, Di Patian slightly frowned, a little puzzled. He's trying to sense Tian Mingtao's soul power. As a pinnacle 9th grade alchemist that could turn liquid into pellets, 2Mo said, although Ningyu's cultivation has reached the 8th grade Earth Sovereign Realm with the help of energy, his soul force is still only at the 8th grade Earth Sovereign Realm. Facing Tian Mingtao's soul force, he has no chance of winning. It's so much so that he can't even determine the direction of Tian Mingtao's soul force. That's right, that's true. However, I don't think that Ningyu can do it. Jean E nodded her head. So what if Ningyu has discovered Tian Mingtao's soul force? Do you really think that Ningyu is Tian Mingtao's opponent? The overwhelming pill demon flung his lips and continued, in my view, Ningyu will be killed in 3 moves at most. Rumble. Under the gazes of Di Patian and the rest, Ningyu's silhouette suddenly moved and dodged Tian Mingtao's fist. However, Ningyu had only taken a few steps when the space around him exploded. Tian Mingtao's spiritual force rushed towards his head at an extremely fast speed. Although Tian Mingtao's soul force wasn't as strong as 2Mo's, it had also reached the level of turning qi into liquid. With Ning Yu's pinnacle 8th grade Earth Sovereign Realm Soul Force, he naturally wasn't Tian Mingtao's opponent. Tian Mingtao, Di Patian, and 2Mo knew about this outcome. Ning Yu also knew about it. Since he couldn't confront Tian Mingtao's soul force head-on, Ning Yu naturally had to dodge. As his silhouette flickered, Ning Yu tore space apart and dodged Tian Mingtao's soul attack. You do have some skill. Seeing that Ning Yu could dodge his soul attack, Tian Mingtao was slightly startled and said, "It's only interesting if you're stronger. Otherwise, it'll be one-sided and boring." As he spoke, a cold smile appeared on the corner of Tian Mingtao's mouth. "I can't beat him in terms of soul force. I have to win in speed." Ning Yu rolled his eyes and instantly decided on a battle strategy. With Ning Yu's experience from his previous life, coupled with his current cultivation of 8th grade Earth Supreme, if he could unexpectedly appear beside Tian Mingtao, he would definitely be able to give Tian Mingtao a fatal blow. Law of Space, can you tear a space and let me appear beside Tian Mingtao? Ning Yu began to contact the Law of Space, hoping that it could help him. No, there are too many experts here. Once I make a move, I'll definitely be exposed. The Law of Space refused. If I'm exposed, you won't have a good time either. Alright. Ning Yu nodded. In fact, the Law of Space was right. Once he was exposed, the consequences would be unimaginable. A mere 8th grade Earth Supreme with the Law of Space would definitely cause an uproar in the Danqing continent if word got out. Ning Yu didn't want to take the risk. Bang bang bang. Next, Ning Yu and Tian Mingtao fought again. However, every time Ning Yu fought with Tian Mingtao, he would be extremely careful, fearing that Tian Mingtao would suddenly use his soul force. Ning Yu could only dodge the soul force at the level of liquefaction. There was no way he could face it head-on. For some reason, after Tian Mingtao used his soul force for the first time, he didn't use it again. Without Tian Mingtao using his soul force, Ning Yu could naturally fight him to a draw, and he even had the upper hand. 25 minutes passed in a blink of an eye. You have 5 minutes left. If you can't kill him, he will complete this test and enter the Berserk Zone at will. When the 26th minute arrived, Little Black's voice resounded in Ning Yu's mind. Hearing this voice, Ning Yu was startled at first, then his expression became extremely solemn. He couldn't kill Tian Mingtao in the first 25 minutes, so how could he do it in the last 5 minutes? The answer was clearly impossible. Fight! Gritting his teeth, Ning Yu summoned the 10,000 bone flame with his left hand and the 10,000 beast flame with his right hand. 2 flames burned on Ning Yu's fingertips, emitting a dazzling light. 10,000 bone flame, 10,000 beast flame. Ranked 29th and 30th on the exotic flame list. I must obtain it. As soon as Ning Yu summoned the 2 flames, Jin Yi and the others' expressions became heated. Jin Yi and the others were alchemists, so they understood the importance of flames to alchemists, especially the top 30 flames on the exotic flame list. In a short period of time, the Danqing continent would hold an alchemy competition. At that time, they would all be participating. It was rumored that the top 10 alchemists in the competition would receive an audience from the Danqing continent's only Dan Emperor. When this news spread, the entire Danqing continent's alchemists were boiling with excitement, even some old monsters came out from their seclusion. This time, the reason why they joined hands to besiege Nebula Academy and the alchemy competition was not without reason. Chapter 1403. Slash in half. Great! Tian Mingtao's eyes widened as he looked at the 2 flames in Ning Yu's hands. The top 50 flames on the mystical flames ranking were heaven-defying existences that were extremely difficult to capture. Although Tian Mingtao was a peak 9th level alchemist and the strength of his soul force had reached the level of liquefying, the flame he owned could barely be ranked in the top 100 of the exotic flames list. It was not even in the top 50. Now that he saw the 2 flames in Ning Yu's hands, Tian Mingtao made up his mind to snatch them at all costs. Ningyu, throw the 2 flames over and I'll consider sparing your life, Tian Mingtao said in a deep voice. Are you sure? Ningyu hesitated. Ningyu was worried that he couldn't get close to Tian Mingtao. It was really like someone sent him a pillow when he was sleepy. Cut the crap. Hurry up. Tian Mingtao waved his hand and said impatiently, My patience is limited. I can't guarantee what will happen if you drag it out. It's not impossible if you want the flames, but you have to swear a heavenly law oath not to attack me, Ningyu said. There were only 5 minutes left. Ningyu didn't dare to be careless and had to give it his all. Ningyu's intention was to numb Tian Mingtao and lower his guard by summoning the myriad bestial flame and myriad bestial flame. Before he numbed Tian Mingtao, he needed to deliberately play some tricks to lure Tian Mingtao into his trap. I swear that I won't attack you as long as I can subdue the 2 flames, Tian Mingtao said. Here. Ningyu nodded and threw the myriad bestial flame to Tian Mingtao without hesitation. Stop! Seeing that the 10,000 bone flame was about to reach Tian Mingtao sent out his soul power and firmly controlled the 10,000 bone flame. If an ordinary person saw the myriad bestial flame, their first reaction would be to run. But Tian Mingtao was different. He was a 7th grade Earth Supreme, and his soul force had reached the level of liquefying. It wasn't difficult to control the myriad bestial flame. Throw the other flame over as well. After controlling the 10,000 bone flame, Tian Mingtao stared at the 10,000 bestial flame with a fervent expression. Catch! Ningyu seemed to have compromised. He threw the myriad beast's flame in his hand towards Tian Mingtao. Chi. Tian Mingtao then separated a wisp of his soul force to control the 10,000 beast's flame. Ha ha ha! After successfully controlling the 10,000 bone flame and the 10,000 beast flame, Tian Mingtao raised his head and let out a loud laugh. Ningyu, thank you for your 2 flames. Now you can die. As he spoke, Tian Mingtao suddenly rushed out and punched Ningyu's head. Why, you actually went back on your word. Ningyu retreated in fear. However, the speed at which Ningyu retreated was clearly not as fast as Tian Mingtao's forward speed. Almost in an instant, Tian Mingtao appeared in front of Ningyu. With a punch, a strong gust of wind blew. As Tian Mingtao's soul force was used to control the flames, he did not use his soul force for this punch. Good chance. Seeing Tian Mingtao's fist, Ningyu was overjoyed. As long as he did not use his soul force, Ningyu was confident that he could defeat Tian Mingtao with a single punch. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu punched out and collided with Tian Mingtao's fist. Crack! What everyone expected did not happen. In fact, Tian Mingtao hurriedly retreated, clutching his right hand and shouting, How dare you cripple my right hand? I will tear you apart. Don't think about tearing me apart. You'd better think about yourself. Ningyu suddenly took out the red demon sword and infused all his yuan qi into it. Then, he slashed at Tian Mingtao's head. You want to kill me? Not so easy. Soul force. Tian Mingtao's eyes were cold. He immediately separated his soul force to block the red demon sword. Qi. However, Tian Mingtao's soul force was completely restrained by the myriad bone flame and the myriad beast flame. He had no way to deal with Ningyu. This is all part of your plan. Tian Mingtao was furious. He knew that he had been tricked. No wonder he could control the top 30 flames of the mystic flames so easily. It turned out that it was Ningyu's doing. First, he restrained his soul power, and then he used a thunderous method to kill him. Don't you think it's a little too late to realize it now? Under Tian Mingtao's horrified gaze, the red demon sword in Ningyu's hand slashed at his neck. Crack! 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 The yuan qi barrier around Tian Mingtao was blasted apart in the blink of an eye. Dodge it! Tian Mingtao, it will be too late if you don't leave now. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and leave. Seeing that Tian Mingtao wanted to block Ningyu's sword, Di Patian and the rest shouted. Tian Mingtao seemed to have made a decision. He drew out the remaining Yuan Qi and soul force in his body and used them to block his neck. Trash and stupidity are the most suitable words to describe you. The corners of Ning Yu's mouth curled up. Then, he suddenly changed direction and slashed at Tian Mingtao's heart with the red demon sword. Not good. Ning Yu's sudden change in direction was completely unexpected to Tian Mingtao. Tian Mingtao was prepared to fight Ning Yu head-on. Who would have thought that Ning Yu would not play by the rules? Tian Mingtao exclaimed. He wanted to gather all his Yuan Qi at his heart, but he was half a beat too late. Ning Yu's speed was very fast. In an instant, the red demon sword pierced Tian Mingtao's heart. With his heart pierced, Tian Mingtao did not die immediately. Instead, a wisp of his essence spirit flew out and flew into the distance. Swish! Tian Mingtao's essence spirit was extremely powerful. Even if Ning Yu used his essence spirit battle body, he could not win. Therefore, Ning Yu wielded the red demon sword and used the last few seconds to slash at Tian Mingtao's essence spirit. 3, 2, 1. When the last second arrived, the red demon sword happened to split Tian Mingtao's essence spirit in half. Buzz. Then, Ning Yu's aura gradually decreased, dropping from 8th grade Earth Supreme to early 8th grade Human Supreme. This change was a little too big. It was so big that Ning Yu could not get used to it immediately. What are you spacing out for? Tian Mingtao's essence spirit might have been killed by you, but it's a great supplement. If you can let the essence spirit battle body devour it, the battle power of the essence spirit battle body will soar in the future. Just as Ning Yu was in a daze, the sapling's voice sounded in his mind. It was a little disappointed that Ning Yu did not live up to its expectations. All right. Ning Yu reacted instantly and hurriedly used his essence spirit battle body. Roar. As soon as the essence spirit battle body appeared, it raised its head and let out a loud roar. Then, under everyone's gaze, it devoured Tian Mingtao's essence spirit, which had been split into two. Burp. After devouring Tian Mingtao's essence spirit, the essence spirit battle body burped and rubbed its stomach. Then, it turned into a shadow and entered the 10,000 spirit sacred flag. Ning Yu's mouth was wide open and his face was filled with disbelief. The essence spirit battle body was in the form of a human. Why would it let out the roar of a demonic beast? Attack! Ning Yu's shock did not last long. He was attracted by another matter. Chapter 1404. The Second Region. The Myriad Bone Flame and Myriad Beast Flame were ranked in the top 30 of the mystical flames. They were extremely attractive to Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Demon. In Jin Yi's view, since Tian Mingtao could last half an hour in the Berserk region, the two of them could also last half an hour. Russell. Without a doubt, when Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Demon descended into the Berserk region, several demon beasts appeared in the surroundings. The cultivation of these demon beasts were all 8th grade Earth Sovereigns. Go! With Tian Mingtao as an example, Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Demon immediately took action and fought against the demon beasts. Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Demon were very smart. They did not forcefully attack the demon beasts, but instead dealt with them. They weren't stupid. On the contrary, they were very smart. As long as they killed the demon beasts, there would be new ones to replace them. Therefore, the two of them did not use their full strength. They only needed to last half an hour in the hands of the demon beasts. Should we go? Looking at Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Demon who were continuously attacking within the Berserk area, Di Patian said in a deep voice. Tian Mingtao's death made Di Patian very angry. Tian Mingtao, the only 9th grade alchemist they had brought with them, had died here. Even if they encountered that thing later, it would be difficult for them to get it. At this moment, Di Patian even hoped that Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Demon would be killed as well. Let's wait. Tu Mo suddenly opened his eyes and said, "The Berserk region is very special. With Jean E and the overwhelming pill demon's strength, it won't be a problem for them to last half an hour. Hearing that 2MO was unwilling to take action, Patien could only nod his head and closed his eyes to rest. Patien did not care whether Jean E and the overwhelming pill demon could persevere or not, because it had nothing to do with him. What Patien was concerned about was how to snatch that thing. Drip, drip. Time was ticking away. In the blink of an eye, half an hour had passed. In this half an hour, although Jean E and the overwhelming pill demon encountered quite a bit of trouble, they still persevered. Ningyu, make your move. Slowly arriving before Ningyu, Jean E said in a low voice, let me see just how much ability you have. Why are you talking nonsense with him? Let's hurry up and take the 10,000 bone flame and the 10,000 beast flame. I want the 10,000 bone flame. Overwhelming pill devil said impatiently. I'll give you the 10,000 bone flame. Genie said. Later, I'll be in charge of using my soul power to attack Ningyu. You'll be in charge of using your energy to attack. In order to get rid of Ningyu, overwhelming pill devil and Jean E had a clear division of labor. They did not want to repeat the mistake that Tian Mingtao had made. Why should I help? Ningyu stared at Jean E and overwhelming pill devil, and then asked doubtfully. You! Hearing Ningyu's words, Jean E and overwhelming pill devil are so angry that their teeth itch. Good, very good. Since you're unwilling to make a move, then we'll make a move first. Overwhelming pill devil had been advocating for killing Ningyu as soon as possible. So when he saw how arrogant Ningyu was, he instantly charged out, wanting to kill Ningyu in a single move. Boom! At that critical moment, Xiao Hei suddenly flew out from Ningyu's body and clashed with overwhelming pill devil. Last half an hour in my hands. After leaving Ningyu's body, Xiao Hei's body suddenly grew bigger, turning into a colossal being. What the F***ck? Jean E and overwhelming pill devil were dumbfounded. The so-called Xiao Hei before them had actually reached the terrifying 9th grade Earth Sovereign Realm. Wasn't Tian Mingtao only facing an 8th grade Earth Sovereign Realm? Why did he become a 9th grade Earth Sovereign when it came to them? Whoosh! Xiao Hei did not give Jean E and the rest any time to think. He immediately charged out and clashed with overwhelming pill devil. Seeing that overwhelming pill devil was being held up by Xiao Hei, Jean Yi's eyes flashed with excitement. If Xiao Hei could hold up the overwhelming pill devil, wouldn't that mean that the myriad bone flame and myriad beast flame would be his? Thinking about it here, Jean E immediately turned into an afterimage and charged towards Ningyu. Roar! Seeing Jean E charging towards Ningyu, Xiao Hei raised his head and unleashed a roar, forcing the overwhelming pill devil back with a move, then turned to attack Jean E. Since her plan was seen through, Jean E could only give up on Ningyu and join hands with the overwhelming pill devil to deal with Xiao Hei. Rumble! In the violent region, although Jean E and overwhelming pill devil made their moves, they couldn't do anything to Xiao Hei. On the contrary, they were at an absolute disadvantage. At this moment, Jean E and overwhelming pill devil had already given up on Ningyu and focused on holding on for half an hour. They were clear that if they couldn't hold on for half an hour, they might follow in Tian Mingtao's footsteps and be killed. Can they hold on for half an hour? Outside the violent region, Jin Xinghai's expression was grave as he spoke in a solemn voice. Jin Yi was the strongest alchemist in the Jin clan, and Jin Xinghai did not want anything to happen to her. Don't worry, with them joining hands, they have at least an 80% chance of holding on for half an hour. Demon Slayer clearly had a clearer view than Jin Xinghai. He said, Xiao Hei's cultivation is at the 9th grade Earth Sovereign Realm, but he's still a demonic beast. His attainments in soul force aren't too high. Otherwise, Jin Yi and the rest wouldn't be able to hold on for half an hour. That's good. The stone in Jin Xinghai's heart was slightly relieved. If Jin Yi died here, then even if they obtained the final item, the price they had to pay would be disastrous. The current Jin clan was no longer the same as before. The other two bloodlines were eyeing them covetously, and the Jin clan had lost many experts in the Void's secret realm. If anything happened to Jin Yi, then the Thousand Leaf Empire's overlord position might have to be handed over. Ningyu, come here. Jin Xinghai and the rest were paying attention to the battle between Xiao He, Jin Yi, and the overwhelming pellet demon. Naturally, Ningyu was also paying attention to it. However, Ningyu only watched for a few minutes before the golden-haired girl hooked her finger at him. Helpless, Ningyu could only obediently come before the golden-haired girl. Although the golden-haired girl only had the cultivation of a first-grade Earth Sovereign, Ningyu didn't dare to look at her like that. Even a terrifying existence like Xiao He was afraid of her, so Ningyu didn't want to die here. Xiao He's strength isn't enough. Those two pieces of trash should be able to hold on for half an hour. Let's hurry to the second region. The golden-haired girl went straight to the point. We're going to the second region now? Ningyu was stunned for a moment before he said, the second region isn't easy with me. Stop. The golden-haired girl interrupted Ningyu and said, I'm here, what are you afraid of? Let's go now. As she spoke, the golden-haired girl walked towards the depths. Xiao He? Ningyu looked at Xiao He, who was fighting with Jin Yi and the rest, and hesitated. Don't worry, even if you die, Xiao He won't die. In the 10th level of the Transcendence Pagoda, unless there's an extremely monstrous fellow, he won't even be injured. Chapter 1405. Chapter 1405. Chapter 1405 Enlightenment. Alright, I'll go now. Ningyu looked at Xiao He and the others who were fighting in the berserk area, then glanced at Master Xingyun in the distance. Immediately after, his figure flashed and disappeared behind the golden-haired girl. Rumble. Not long after Ningyu and the golden-haired girl disappeared, Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Devil made their moves, even using all their strength. Since the beginning, he had decided to persist for half an hour, but now he wanted to get rid of Little Black. The reason why Jin Yi and overwhelming Pill Devil had this kind of change in their hearts was completely because of Ningyu, because of the 10,000 Bone Flame and 10,000 Beast Flame in Ningyu's hands. Pucci. Due to their panic, Xiao He had the opportunity to take advantage of them. Black seized a mistake of Howren Pill Devil and directly beat Howren Pill Devil to vomit blood. Calm down. Outside the Berserk Zone, the Butcher Demon suddenly stood up and said, Your mission is to endure for half an hour. Don't think too much about the rest. The words Demon Slayer played a crucial role. Overwhelming Pill Demon and Jin Yi both took a deep breath and calmed down. A peak grade 9 alchemist who had calmed down was extremely terrifying. Jin Yi and overwhelming Pill Devil joined hands and actually fought to a draw with Little Black. The two of you, get ready. Later, each of you will summon a doppelganger. At most, it will only have 50% of the original strength. Since the overwhelming Pill Devil and the others had calmed down, Demon Slayer no longer paid attention to them. He turned to Di Patian and Jin Xinghai and said, The soul elixir I prepared is limited. It can only provide you with 50% of your strength. If anyone dares to let their strength reach 60%, then don't come looking for me if anything happens. What about Grandmaster Xingyun? Di Patian asked. Leave him here. Don't worry about him for now. Slayer said. Our mission is to hurry to the second region. Otherwise, all the good fortune will be taken by that Ningyu. Meanwhile, in front of the second zone of the 10th level of the Yuzuan Pagoda, Ningyu stared blankly at the huge altar in front of him. 20 years ago, the second region of the Yuzuan Pagoda was not like this. Ningyu remembered very clearly that there was a round platform here 20 years ago, and there was a huge stone on the round platform. This stone was called the Tao Comprehension Stone. Anyone who got close to the Tao Comprehension Stone would have a certain chance of gaining enlightenment. In the second area there was a huge altar. Below the altar, there were more than 10 round praying mats. What was the altar for? What was the use of the praying mat? Ningyu knew nothing about these things. Don't just stand there. Find a praying mat and sit down. Seeing that Ningyu was in a daze, the golden-haired girl pointed to the circular praying mat in front of her and said, "If you're lucky, your strength might double." Double my strength? Is he that powerful? Ningyu was a little confused. Actually, Ningyu couldn't be blamed. With his current strength, he could confront and even kill a pinnacle first-grade Earth Sovereign. If his strength could be doubled, wouldn't that mean that he could confront and even kill a second-grade Earth Sovereign? Hurry up! The golden-haired girl raised her right leg and was about to kick Ningyu's butt. I'll do it myself. Ningyu's legs moved quickly and he found a praying mat to sit on. You're powerful, but you can't kick my butt. Ningyu cursed inwardly before he moved his gaze and started to observe. Swish! No matter how Ningyu observed, the golden-haired girl did not care. Her figure flashed, and she directly jumped onto the altar and entered. Plop! When the golden-haired girl jumped onto the altar, Ningyu could clearly hear a plop. There's liquid in the altar? Ningyu withdrew his thoughts and muttered. Through his observation, Ningyu had already figured out the situation in the second area. There was a transparent barrier in the surroundings. If it wasn't for the golden-haired girl's help, Ningyu wouldn't have been able to enter with his initial 8th grade Earth Sovereign cultivation. Since I'm already here, I might as well take things as they come. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu gradually calmed down and no longer cared about his surroundings. Since the golden-haired girl said that he could comprehend the Tao here, then Ningyu would not be distracted and try to comprehend the Tao here. Buzz. For the first 10 minutes, Ningyu did not feel anything. But from the 11th minute onwards, Ningyu's eyes suddenly opened with a hint of surprise. Tao comprehension. Ningyu was shocked. What he was feeling right now was Tao comprehension. Ningyu didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly guarded his mind and let his mind enter an empty state. What Ningyu did not know was that while he was trying to comprehend the Tao, in the third area of the 10th level of the Transcendence Pagoda, an illusory figure raised his brows and asked in confusion, "Someone is comprehending the Tao in the second area?" The illusory figure was very shocked. Ever since he threw the Tao comprehension stone into the altar and refined it, he never thought that someone would be able to comprehend the Tao. Because to comprehend the Tao in the second area, one must first enter the 10th level of the Transcendence Pagoda, pass through the Berserk area, and open the second area's barrier. Even in the entire Sky Demon region, it was extremely rare to find someone who fulfilled these conditions. Let me take a look. The illusory figure gently slid his hands, and a transparent barrier appeared in front of him. Chapter 1406. Kill. Buzz. In the second zone below the altar, on the round futon, Ningyu's eyes were tightly shut. Wisps of white gas emerged from the futon and surrounded him. Enlightenment. Ningyu was still in the middle of enlightenment. 20 minutes had passed since Ningyu sat on the futon. During these 20 minutes, Ningyu did not do anything. His mind was in an ethereal state. Apart from the first 10 minutes, Ningyu had benefited a lot in the last 20 minutes. Ningyu could clearly feel that although he had not advanced to the intermediate 8th grade human supreme realm, his strength had nearly doubled. In other words, Ningyu could easily kill a peak 1st grade Earth Supreme Realm cultivator. Even if he encountered a peak 2nd grade Earth Supreme Realm cultivator, Ningyu had a high chance of killing him. Whoosh! While Ningyu was in the middle of enlightenment, the golden-haired girl's figure flashed and suddenly rushed out from the altar. He actually managed to comprehend the Tao. Furthermore, his strength has doubled. Seeing Ningyu's state, the golden-haired girl nodded in satisfaction and said, "Let me give you a hand." The golden-haired girl grabbed the altar with her right hand. In an instant, a liquid surged out from the altar. Then, the golden-haired girl threw the liquid at Ningyu. Chi! 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 The moment the liquid came into contact with the white gas surrounding Ningyu, it was absorbed. Immediately after, the white gas entered Ning Yu's body and disappeared. Swoosh. As soon as the white gas entered Ning Yu's body, Ning Yu suddenly opened his eyes. A terrifying light burst out from his eyes. Rumble. In the next moment, a terrifying aura swept out from Ning Yu's body and rushed into the sky. 8th grade middle human supreme martial artist. After more than 20 minutes of enlightenment, with the help of the golden-haired girl, Ning Yu had finally advanced a step further and advanced to the middle half-grade sovereign stage. If other people on the Elixir Formation continent knew about Ning Yu's cultivation speed, they would probably pass out from shock. It hadn't been long since he had advanced to the early stage 8th grade human supreme martial artist. He didn't even know if his aura had stabilized before he broke through again. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was frightening. Not bad. Sensing the changes in his aura, Ning Yu was quite satisfied. His greatest gain from comprehending the Tao wasn't his cultivation reaching the middle 8th grade sovereign realm, nor was it his strength doubling. Instead, it was his deep understanding of his future path of cultivation. Nothing could compare to this kind of change. Swish, 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 swish. At this moment, the situation suddenly changed. Several figures suddenly appeared at the entrance of the second area. It's you. Ning Yu's expression turned extremely ugly as he looked at the few figures that appeared not far away. Di Patian, Jin Xinghai, 2MO, Jin Yi, and the overwhelming Pill Devil. These people were simply like ghosts that wouldn't go away. Ning Yu, are you going to surrender obediently and hand over the 10,000 Bone Flame and 10,000 Beast Flame, or do we kill you and then take the 10,000 Bone Flame and 10,000 Beast Flame? The first to speak were Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Devil. The two of them had suffered greatly in the Berserk area, so they wanted to teach Ning Yu a lesson. But before teaching Ning Yu a lesson, they had to first think of a way to obtain the 10,000 Bone Flame and 10,000 Beast Flame. Otherwise, everything would be empty talk. It's you guys again. Before Ning Yu could answer Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Devil, the golden-haired girl put her hands on her waist and said angrily, "This time, I will let you know why the flowers are so red." As she spoke, the golden-haired girl flicked her finger. Instantly, a cold light swept out. The speed of the cold light was very fast, so fast that before Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Devil could react, the cold light had already arrived in front of them. At the critical moment, Jin Yi and the overwhelming Pill Devil released their soul force, forming a soul protection barrier in front of them. Boom! The soul protection barrier that two peak grade 9 alchemists joined hands to set up, the defensive power was still extremely shocking. The cold light that the golden-haired girl released did not destroy the soul protection barrier. Just this bit of ability? After blocking the cold light that the golden-haired girl released, the corners of Jin Yi's mouth curled up and she said in a cold voice, "Since it's like this, even you have to die." Both feet stepping on the ground, Jin Yi quickly rushed out. Bang! However, Jin Yi had just rushed out a few steps when she suddenly stopped. The reason why Jin Yi stopped was not because she was afraid of the golden-haired girl, but because she encountered an obstruction. Suddenly, a barrier appeared in front of her, blocking her from moving forward. What the hell is this? Seeing the barrier that appeared in front of her, Jin Yi said in a cold voice, "Watch me break it." Jin Yi opened her mouth, suddenly spitting out a cold light. This cold light not only contained a frightening amount of Yuan Qi, but it also contained a frightening amount of soul force fluctuations. Essence energy and soul force attacking together, Jin Yi was bound to break the barrier. Poochie. Dreams were very plump, reality was very bony. The cold light that Jin Yi spat out, after coming into contact with the barrier, actually rebounded and attacked herself. Even if Jin Yi quickly dodged, she was still attacked by her own cold light, spurting out a large mouthful of dark red blood, her complexion somewhat pale. "Can you break this barrier?" Seeing that Jin Yi was injured by his cold light, Jin Xinghai asked in a deep voice. "I can break it, but it's somewhat difficult. I need time. Demon Slayer said with a frown. How long? Jin Xinghai asked again. If we all came with our original bodies, I would at most need 3 minutes to break the barrier. But now I should need 5 minutes. Demon Slayer said, the few of you, attack the other side of the barrier, give me 5 minutes. Understood. Jin Xinghai and the others nodded, turning to attack the other side of the barrier. Swoosh. Attacks after attacks were unleashed from Jin Xinghai and the others, attacking the barrier without any regard for their lives. Demon Slayer's hands formed seals, constantly releasing cold light that repeatedly struck the barrier. It's absolutely impossible for you to break the barrier like this. Don't waste your energy. The golden-haired little girl curled her lips and said, the barrier has the ability to reflect. The more powerful your attack, the more powerful its reflection. Is that so? Hearing the golden-haired little girl's words, Demon Slayer did not get angry. Instead, the corners of his mouth curled up and he said, although this barrier can reflect attacks, it has a fatal flaw, and that is that it has an unstable point. As long as that unstable point is blasted open, the barrier will shatter. Hearing this, the golden-haired little girl's complexion turned a little unsightly. Demon Slayer could actually see this point, which meant that he was indeed not simple. Let's go. After a moment of silence, the golden-haired little girl stomped on the ground and flew deeper. We're going to the third region now? Ningyu frowned and said, what if they break through the barrier? Nothing. The golden-haired little girl did not even turn her head, directly increasing her speed and disappearing in the blink of an eye. All right. Helpless, Ningyu could only follow behind the golden-haired little girl, flying into the distance. He was only an 8th grade intermediate human supreme, there was no point in staying behind. It was better to go deeper, find the control center of the Tower of Ascension, and control it. Chapter 1407. Demonic Lotus Flame. The third zone of the Ascension Tower wasn't too far from the second zone. A minute later, Ningyu and the golden-haired girl stopped. I can't believe it. As soon as he stopped, Ningyu couldn't help but curse, revealing a horrified expression. The reason Ningyu had such an expression was because he had discovered something extremely shocking in front of him. Demonic Lotus Flame. Heavenly Fire Alchemy Furnace. Whether it was the demonic lotus flame or the heavenly fire alchemy cauldron, they were all things from his previous life. What made Ningyu puzzled was why would the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire pill furnace appear here? Didn't they fall from the peak of the Skyfiend realm? Could it be that Master Xing Yun asked him to come? All kinds of doubts appeared in Ningyu's mind. However, Ningyu's attention was quickly attracted by the shadow below the Heaven Fire Elixir Furnace. In terms of aura, the illusory figure seemed to be a Sky Supreme, but also an Earth Supreme. It was as though he was a supreme being. Of course, these were not the focus of Ningyu's attention. What Ningyu was concerned about was what kind of medicinal pill the illusory figure was refining. Using the heavenly fire cauldron and the demonic lotus flame to refine the elixir, the lowest grade would be at the peak of the 9th grade. Below the heavenly fire pill furnace, the illusory figure waved his hands repeatedly, taking out storage bags from his bosom and throwing them into the pill furnace. Chi-chi. Every storage pouch that was thrown into the pill furnace did not even last for a second before it was completely refined. Every time the illusory figure took out a storage bag, the black lines on Ningyu's face deepened. Without exception, these storage bags were all treasures that Ningyu had left behind in the Tower of the Ascension of You in his previous life. There were treasures of heaven and earth, rare and precious treasures, and even many medicinal herbs that could be ranked in the heavenly demon region. Using these medicinal herbs to refine an elixir, it was extremely likely that it would reach the 10th grade. Thinking of this, Ningyu's expression became solemn. As a peak level 9 alchemist in his previous life, Ningyu knew how difficult it was to refine a level 10 pill. Even though Ning Yu was an alchemist who had broken through to the Emperor realm in his previous life, he did not dare to say that he could refine a 10th-grade pill with 100% certainty, let alone using these precious herbs. Buzz. The illusory figure was abnormally focused and was not affected by Ning Yu and the golden-haired girl at all. His hands formed a series of hand seals, and traces of flames appeared from his fingertips, incessantly burning the bottom of the heavenly fire alchemy furnace. 1 minute, 2 minutes, time passed quickly. When the 4th minute arrived, the illusory figure suddenly rushed out, his right hand fiercely slapping the bottom of the pill furnace. Ding! A crisp sound came from the pill furnace. Not long after this clear sound rang out, a silver-white medicinal pill flew out from the heavenly fire pill furnace. Puff! The illusory figure had sharp eyes and nimble hands, firmly grabbing onto it. Here! In the next instant, the illusory figure flicked his wrist and threw the silver-white elixir to the golden-haired little girl. Crack! Without a word, the golden-haired little girl threw the silver-white elixir into her mouth and chewed. Once the elixir entered her stomach, the golden-haired little girl sat cross-legged on the ground and began to refine the elixir. Although you have her help, it was not easy for you to come here. After doing all this, the illusory figure put away the heavenly fire alchemy furnace and the demonic lotus flame, then came before Ning Yu. He looked Ning Yu up and down, then said, "If I'm not wrong, you have the war god's physique." "Senior, I do have the war god's physique," Ning Yu hurriedly said. Although he could not tell the illusory figure's cultivation, Ning Yu knew very well that the figure was definitely stronger than him. Since the illusory figure had no ill intentions, Ning Yu did not want to make an enemy out of him. "Have you been to the Tower of Yuzuan before?" The illusory figure's lips curled up. "Senior, you must be joking. This is my first time here. It was purely a coincidence that I was able to reach the 10th floor of the Tower of Yuzuan." Ning Yu did not dare to be careless and hurriedly said, "In your opinion, the Tower of Yuzuan only has 10 floors?" The illusory figure suddenly said with a smile that was not a smile. Hearing the illusory figure's words, Ning Yu was first stunned, then he said, "Could there be an 11th floor of the Tower of Yuzuan?" Actually, it was no wonder that Ning Yu was shocked. In his previous life, no one in the entire Sky Demon region knew the Tower of Yuzuan better than him, because he was the tower's owner. Ning Yu had once guessed that there was an 11th floor of the Tower of Yuzuan, but this guess was quickly overturned by him. In his opinion, there was no way the Tower of Yuzuan had an 11th floor. "Forget it, it's not time for you to know these things." Waving his hand, the illusory figure said, "I've waited for a brat for 20 years, but he never appeared. Since that's the case, then you will be the next owner of the Tower of Yuzuan." "You want me to be the owner of the Tower of Yuzuan?" This time, Ning Yu was even more dumbfounded. His main goal here was to control the Tower of Yuzuan. For some reason, when the illusory figure said that he would be the owner of the Tower of Yuzuan, he didn't feel the slightest bit excited. After a moment of silence, Ning Yu said, "Senior, I have a presumptuous request." The illusory figure said, "Heavenly fire cauldron, demonic lotus flame." Ning Yu gritted his teeth and said, "I want." At this point, Ning Yu paused and didn't continue. Although he didn't continue, the meaning of Ning Yu's words was obvious. "I want the heavenly fire cauldron and demonic lotus flame." Even if you didn't say it, I had the same intention. With a smile, the illusory figure flicked his wrist and flung the demonic lotus flame at Ning Yu. Not good. Seeing the demonic lotus flame approaching him, Ning Yu's expression changed and he hurriedly retreated. In his previous life, the reason why he could control the demonic lotus flame was because he had prepared a large amount of elixirs and a pinnacle 9th grade soul force. In this life, he was only an 8th grade intermediate human sovereign. With a pinnacle 8th grade soul force, he didn't have the strength to control the demonic lotus flame. The demonic lotus flame is already under my control. As long as you can endure its terrifying flames, you can control it. After saying that, the illusory figure looked at the golden-haired girl and murmured, "For your safety, I can't be careless. If he wants to control the Tower of Yuzuan, he will have to go through a series of tests." Alright. In the process of retreating, Ningyu suddenly stopped. Gritting his teeth, he immediately gave up resisting and allowed the demonic lotus flame to rush towards his sea of consciousness. Sizzle! Wherever the demonic lotus flame passed, the air sizzled from the scorching heat, and even the void cracked open. This was the terrifying flame that was ranked 5th on the mystical flame list. Without the help of elixirs, not to mention an 8th-grade sovereign, even a heavenly supreme might not be able to control it. But Ningyu was different. Firstly, he had the complete memories of his previous life and knew how to control the demonic lotus flame. Secondly, and most importantly, he had the sapling and the law of space. Chapter 1408. Chapter 1408. Chapter 1408 Overestimating One's Capabilities. As Ningyu had completely opened up his sea of consciousness, the demonic lotus flame entered his sea of consciousness without any obstruction. Pucci. As soon as the demonic lotus flame entered Ningyu's sea of consciousness, it became extremely violent, wreaking havoc in Ningyu's sea of consciousness. This kind of devastation caused Ningyu to feel a sweet taste in his throat, and he directly spat out a mouthful of dark red blood. It seems like controlling the demonic lotus flame will be harder than ascending to the heavens. Seeing Ningyu's state, the illusory figure shook his head helplessly. That's right. The demonic lotus flame is ranked 5th on the mysterious flame ranking. Thinking about it, the illusory figure laughed at himself and said, "Even an ordinary peak 9th-tier alchemist would find it difficult to control it, not to mention this little guy's soul power strength is only at the peak 8th tier. Forget it, let's just take it back." Shaking his head, the illusory figure made a grabbing motion with his right hand, trying to retrieve the bewitching lotus flame in Ningyu's sea of consciousness. Suddenly, the illusory figure's expression changed. He was slightly surprised. He could sense that the connection between the demonic lotus flame and Ningyu was getting deeper and deeper. In other words, if he wanted to take back the demonic lotus flame, he would have to spend some effort. Not simple indeed. No wonder you're able to reach the 10th level of the Ascension Tower. Since that's the case, I'll give you a chance. The illusory figure took a deep breath and left Ningyu alone. In the eyes of the illusory figure, even if Ningyu's soul force was only at the peak of the 8th grade, he still had a certain chance of controlling the demonic lotus flame. Even the illusory figure might not be able to control the demonic lotus flame with peak rank 8 soul force. At the same time, in Ningyu's sea of consciousness, damn it, why is the demonic lotus flame so difficult to deal with? In order to control the demonic lotus flame, Ningyu gathered all his soul force in his sea of consciousness, striving to suppress the demonic lotus flame. Otherwise, if he allowed the demonic lotus flame to wreak havoc in his sea of consciousness, it would have a huge impact on Ningyu. Sapling, law of space, hurry up and come help me. Ningyu was very clear that with his current strength, it was indeed very difficult for him to control the demonic lotus flame. Unless one had the help of the law of space and the sapling, there was almost no possibility of controlling the demonic lotus flame. It's best if you don't contact us. That guy is very strong, ridiculously strong. Although it's just an illusion, as long as we take action, we'll definitely find him. The sapling said in a deep voice. It could be seen that the sapling was very afraid of the illusory figure. Ningyu's face darkened. If the sapling and the law of space did not help, Ningyu would only be able to last a few minutes at most. After all, not everyone could control a terrifying flame like the demonic lotus flame. Voila! Right at this moment, several figures suddenly appeared not far away. Without a doubt, these people were Slaughterer and the others. After all, they didn't know what the second zone's praying mat was, so they didn't stay there. After breaking through the barrier, they immediately rushed to the third region. That's Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace. Just arriving at the third region, Slaughterer and Jin Yi's eyes widened, their faces filled with ecstasy. The Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace was ranked third on the Pill Furnace Heaven list. In the Pill Formation continent, the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace might be the highest-ranked pill furnace. Even a peak Grade 9 pill refinement master, Slaughterer's Pill Furnace was only ranked 11th on the Pill Furnace Heaven list. Now that they saw the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace, how could they not be shocked? Get it? We must get it. There's a Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace here. Maybe there's a demonic lotus flame. The Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace was Ning Yu's item. Since it appeared here, it meant that the demonic lotus flame was also here. If they could obtain the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace and the demonic lotus flame, then in the alchemy competition, they could basically determine the top 3 spots. Jin Yi and Overwhelming Pill Demon were in high spirits. Even Slaughterer was eager to give it a try. However, Slaughterer was careful and didn't rush out immediately. Because Slaughterer felt that the illusory figure was not simple. He didn't want to give up the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace just because he underestimated the enemy. Comparatively, Jin Yi and Overwhelming Pill Demon didn't have so many worries. They stepped on the ground and rushed towards the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace at a terrifying speed. All of you be quiet. Seeing Jin Yi and the rest rushing out, the illusory figure frowned slightly and said, "Don't you know that it is a very disrespectful thing to take someone else's pill furnace without their permission? I don't care if you are disrespectful or not. In short, to be able to obtain the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace is better than anything else." Jin Yi roared, completely ignoring the illusory figure's obstruction. In her eyes, there was only the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace. She didn't care about anything else. The illusory figure slowly shook his head and flicked his finger. Instantly, a cold light flew out. The cold light became bigger and bigger. In the end, it turned into a large net and firmly controlled Jin Yi inside. What? Overwhelming Pill Demon saw Jin Yi's situation and hurriedly stopped, revealing a shocked expression. Jin Yi's strength was not any weaker than his. Even Jin Yi was so easily controlled, let alone him. "Who are you?" At this time, Tu Mo's expression was solemn as he said in a low voice, "We need the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace. As long as you give it to us, we will leave and guarantee that we will not be enemies with you." On the surface, Tu Mo's words seemed to be polite, but in reality, that was not the case. He was probing the illusory figure. As long as the illusory figure showed any signs of panic or retreating, he would immediately attack and give the illusory figure a fatal blow. "Stop talking nonsense with me. To be able to reach this level of the Transcendence Pagoda, it means that you guys have some ability. Unfortunately, you guys are a step too late." The illusory figure waved his hand and pointed at Ningyu. "That kid came here before you guys, so the control of the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace and the demonic lotus flame is his. Unless his control fails, you guys won't have any chance." Rumble. 2MO didn't listen to the illusory figure's words. His attention was completely attracted by the demonic lotus flame in the illusory figure's mouth. At the start, he only guessed that there was a demonic lotus flame here. Who would have thought that there really was a demonic lotus flame here? This is really wearing out iron shoes in fruitless search, only to find it by chance. The corner of Tu Mo's mouth curled up as he said sinisterly, "Di Patian, Jin Xinghai, don't just stand there. The two of you help me stall the illusory figure. I will first control the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace, and then think of a way to snatch the demonic lotus flame in Ningyu's body." Why are we the ones dealing with the illusory figure? Di Patian and Jin Xinghai were very dissatisfied. They came here together for the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace and the demonic lotus flame. Now that the opportunity was right in front of them, 2MO asked them to do some unimportant things. He wanted to monopolize the Heavenly Fire Pill Furnace and the demonic lotus flame. How could they be satisfied? How about this? The three of us will work together and subdue the illusory figure first. Chapter 1409. Chapter 1409. Chapter 1409. Regain control, no problem. Di Patian and Jin Xinghai nodded in satisfaction when they heard Luan Mo's words. They were not fools. Even if they could fight against the illusory figure by joining hands, they could not attack. Otherwise, when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. They and the illusory figure were the sandpiper and clam, while Demon Slayer was the fisherman. Attack! Slayer Demon's eyes turned cold, and he instantly rushed out, flying towards the illusory figure. It was fine if he didn't make a move, but when he did, it was a killing move. In order to get rid of the illusory figure as soon as possible, Demon Slayer used all his strength. Chi-Chi. Frightening Yuan Chi, coupled with frightening soul force undulations, ruthlessly attacked the illusory figure. Slaughterer was a mid-stage Sky Supreme, and his soul force had reached the level of liquefying into a core. Even if this clone only possessed 50% of his strength, it could easily kill ordinary heavenly sovereigns. Demon Slayer knew that the illusory figure was strong, but he didn't believe that it was ridiculously strong. His attack was very powerful, and coupled with the terrifying attacks of Di Patian and Jin Xinghai, he believed that killing the illusory figure would be very easy. The illusory figure frowned slightly as he watched the slaughterer demon approach him. No one knew what he was thinking. In fact, the illusory figure even turned around to look at Ning Yu and the golden-haired girl, not taking them seriously at all. Die! Demon Slayer's eyes shone with a frightening light. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched the illusory figure's head. Ah! Just as his fist was about to strike the illusory figure's head, Slaughterer Demon raised his head and laughed maniacally. What? However, just as Slaughterer Demon's maniacal laughter rang out, his expression changed drastically. Because he discovered that his fist had actually passed through the illusory figure's head. Afterimage? Demon Slayer was slightly taken aback before he hurriedly retreated. Bang! It was clearly too late for Demon Slayer to retreat now. The space beside him suddenly split open, and the illusory figure punched him in the chest. A muffled sound rang out. Demon Slayer's body flew straight back and slammed heavily into the ground, producing a crisp sound. Initially, Di Patian and Jin Xinghai wanted to attack the illusory figure. However, when they saw that even the powerful 2MO was repelled by a single move, they instantly stopped in their tracks. Gulp! Di Patian could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. He whispered to Jin Xinghai, who was next to him, "Are we still going? Let's wait a little longer," Jin Xinghai said in a deep voice. Both Di Patian and Jin Xinghai were very smart. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they were extremely smart. They couldn't tell how the illusory figure disappeared. If he rashly launched an attack now, it was very likely that he would encounter danger. Very good. He wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth and said, "I admit that you're very strong. If it wasn't for the fact that my main body isn't here, then I would be able to defeat you with a single hand." Slayer was very arrogant. Of course, he had the right to be arrogant. That punch just now wasn't his true strength. After all, this was a doppelganger, so he couldn't unleash his true strength. "As you wish." The illusory figure pointed at the void with his right hand and a passage appeared. Swish, 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 swish. The passageway connected to the entrance of the Transcendence Pagoda's 10th floor and sucked Slaughterer and the others over. Buzz, buzz, buzz. When their true bodies appeared, Demon Slayer and Di Patian immediately turned into afterimages and fused with their true bodies. Again. After fusing with his true body, Demon Slayer's confidence soared. Without stopping, Demon Slayer was the first to charge at the illusory figure. Behind Demon Slayer, Di Patian and Jin Xinghai were also very confident. In their current state, they could even put up a fight against a late sky supremacy. In their opinion, the illusory figure was only a peak mid-stage Sky Supreme. Wouldn't it be easy for the three of them to deal with a martial artist of this cultivation level? Rumble. It turned out that they had gambled correctly. The illusory figure was fighting 1 against 3 and was completely at a disadvantage. He was even beaten back several times. Ha ha. Let's go. Come on. Di Patian threw his head back and laughed maniacally, desperately attacking. Jin Shanghai and Demon Slayer were also in a good mood. As long as they could get rid of the illusory figure, the control of the Transcendence Pagoda, the Heavenly Fire Cauldron, and the demonic Lotus Flame would all belong to them. While Demon Slayer and the others were fighting, the Righteous Pill Demon's mind became active. His eyes swept back and forth between Ning Yu and the golden-haired little girl, revealing a greedy look in his eyes. Demon Slayer and the others were held back by the illusory figure, and Jin Yi was trapped in the big net. Only he could free up his hands. Should I deal with Ning Yu first, or the golden-haired little girl first? The Righteous Pill Demon was in a dilemma for a moment. Ning Yu was trying to find a way to control the demonic Lotus Flame. If he could kill Ning Yu, he would have a certain chance to control the demonic Lotus Flame. However, this chance was very slim. After all, with the strength of his current soul force, he needed a lot of elixirs to be able to smoothly control the demonic Lotus Flame. I'll deal with the golden-haired little girl first, and leave Ning Yu to master and the others. The Righteous Pill Demon gritted his teeth, stepped on the ground, and directly rushed toward the golden-haired little girl. The Righteous Pill Demon's idea was very simple. Control the golden-haired little girl, and make the illusory figure hesitate to attack. As long as the speed was good, he might be able to have an additional fighter like the illusory figure. Courting death. The ideal was very rich, but the reality was very skinny. As soon as the Righteous Pill Demon rushed out, the illusory figure tore apart the illusory figure beside him, and punched towards his head. Bang! The fist hit the head, causing flesh and blood to fly everywhere and the brain to burst open. The illusory figure's punch was very powerful. In addition to blowing up the Righteous Pill Demon's head, it also killed his primordial spirit. I'll give you a good fortune. The illusory figure grabbed all the essence and soul force in the Righteous Pill Demon's body, fused them into 2 balls of cold light, and threw them at Ning Yu. Pow! Ning Yu sat on the ground. His hands quickly swept out, firmly grabbing the 2 cold lights. Following that, without saying a word, Ning Yu directly threw the cold light into his mouth and chewed. It's really what I lack. Ning Yu was very grateful to the illusory figure. He had reached the critical period of controlling the demonic Lotus Flame. As long as he had the essence and pure soul force, he would succeed. The illusory figure really gave him a pillow when he was sleepy and an umbrella when it rained heavily. Quick, use this soul force and essence to control the demonic Lotus Flame. In Ning Yu's sea of consciousness, the sapling and the law of space were overjoyed. They used the illusory figure to quietly enter Ning Yu's sea of consciousness while fighting with Demon Slayer and the others. After a period of hard work, Ning Yu was only 1 step away from being able to successfully control the demonic Lotus Flame. Now that the illusory figure had sent them pure essence and pure soul force, they didn't have time to thank him and immediately helped Ning Yu. Chi-chi. In the sea of consciousness, the demonic Lotus Flame struggled less and less. When Ning Yu forced a drop of blood essence into the demonic Lotus Flame, the demonic Lotus Flame finally calmed down and quietly floated in Ning Yu's sea of consciousness. Phew! Seeing this, Ning Yu let out a sigh of relief, and a relieved expression appeared on his face. At this moment, the flame ranked 5th on the bizarre flame list. Demonic Lotus Flame. Chapter 1410. Chapter 1410. Chapter 1410 Special Feeling. What? The sudden death of the overwhelming Pill Devil caused the hearts of Demon Slayer and the others to sink to the bottom. They knew that the illusory figure was strong, but they didn't expect it to be this strong. One must know that the three of them could even confront a late-phase heavenly sovereign if they joined forces. The illusory figure fought with them while killing the overwhelming pill devil. This meant that the illusory figure was not just a little bit stronger than them, but by a lot. "Who the hell are you?" Then, the demon slayer said gravely, instantly putting a long distance between him and the illusory figure. Slaughterer didn't plan on attacking again. If he wasn't afraid of the illusory figure's pursuit, he would have fled immediately. If he continued to stay here, he was destined to suffer. "Sigh, I've already warned you, but you didn't listen." The illusory figure sighed and said, "The heavens are merciful. I don't want to kill you." At this point, the illusory figure paused for a moment before continuing. "If he can control the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire alchemy furnace, then all of you will have to listen to his orders from now on. The time shall be 100 years. Hearing the illusory figure's words, Demon Slayer and the others' faces darkened. They had to listen to Ning Yu's orders for 100 years? To hell with it. They were all Sky Supremes, and Ning Yu was only an initial stage 8th grade sovereign. Fine, he was an intermediate stage 8th grade sovereign, but compared to them, the difference was like the difference between heaven and earth. How were they going to establish themselves in the Pellet Formation continent if word got out that they had heavenly sovereigns listen to a mortal sovereign? What, you don't want to? Upon seeing the changes in Slaughterer and Company's expressions, the illusory figure's expression turned somewhat ugly. Rules were rules, and nothing could be accomplished without them. He had already set the rule that the first person to arrive here would be the first to control the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire pill furnace. Now that Demon's Lair had broken the rules, it was already benevolent of him not to kill Demon's Lair on the spot. Nonsense, of course not. Slayer gritted his teeth and said, "At most, we'll fight to the death." "Who's afraid of who?" "Hee, I'm afraid that even if the fish dies, the net will not break." The corner of the illusionary silhouette's lips curled up. He then formed a series of hand seals. Ka. Immediately, a huge cage appeared above Demon Slayer and the others. The speed of the cage was very fast. Before Butcher and the others could react, they were already trapped inside. "What are you trying to do? There's no enmity between us. There's no need for both of us to be injured." Butcher Demon did not attack the cage. Instead, he said in a deep voice, "How about this? We'll retreat now. If we disturb you, please forgive us." "Demon Slayer, what are you trying to do?" Hearing Tu Mo's words, Di Patian and Jin Xinghai's expressions changed. They hurriedly said, "Why compromise with him? This broken cage can't trap us at all. If you don't want to die, you'd better shut up." Di Patian and Jin Xinghai could not see the uniqueness of the cage, but Demon Slayer could. The cage was special. Not to mention a mid-heavenly sovereign, even a late heavenly sovereign wouldn't be able to break it. To be able to do such a thing, it was highly likely that his cultivation had surpassed the Sky Supreme realm. At the thought of this, Slaughterer Demon secretly made up his mind that he absolutely could not become enemies with the illusory figure. He had to think of a way to leave. "I don't believe it." D. Potion's eyes were cold. He punched the edge of the cage. In the next moment, D. Patian paid the price for his ignorance. An attack of the same intensity bounced back and landed heavily on his chest. A metallic taste came from his throat. D. Patian violently spat out a mouthful of dark red blood, his face extremely pale. A rebound attack? Like the barrier in the second region? Demon Slayer, how confident are you that you can break this cage? D. Patian asked, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. Shaking his head, Tu Mo said, "There's no other way. If I really have to use all my strength to break it, I can probably break it in 100 years. Tu Mo's words stunned D. Patian on the spot. 100 years to break the cage? If that was the case, what was the difference between them and obeying Ning Yu for 100 years? In fact, being trapped in the cage for 100 years was even more terrifying than obeying Ning Yu's orders. Just thinking about the dark days without daylight was enough to make one feel terrified. Swish. Seeing that 2Mo and the others were controlled by the illusory figure, Ning Yu quietly opened his eyes, took a deep breath and said, "Senior, I have already controlled the demonic lotus flame." Then, Ning Yu stretched out his right hand, and a flame appeared on his fingertip. Demonic lotus flame. The flame on Ning Yu's fingertip was the demonic lotus flame. You really controlled it? Even the illusory figure found it a little unbelievable that Ning Yu could control the demonic lotus flame. Staring at Ning Yu, the illusory figure wanted to find some flaws. However, Ning Yu's expression didn't change much, disappointing the illusory figure. Since you can control the demonic lotus flame, it shouldn't be difficult to control the heaven fire alchemy furnace. The illusory figure flicked his sleeves, and in a split second, the heaven fire alchemy furnace flew towards Ning Yu. Seeing the heaven fire alchemy furnace flying towards him, Ning Yu hurriedly took out the demonic lotus flame and burned it at the bottom of the heaven fire alchemy furnace. Alchemy furnaces were ranked high on the heaven list, and controlling them was even more difficult than controlling flames. They didn't care about the strength of a warrior's soul force or yuan qi. All they cared about was whether a warrior had a high-ranked flame. With the demonic lotus flame, it was very easy for Ning Yu to control the heaven fire alchemy furnace. About 10 minutes later, Ning Yu had complete control of the heaven fire alchemy furnace. Very good, very good. The illusory figure nodded in satisfaction and said, "I'm a man of my word. Since you can control the demonic lotus flame and the heaven fire alchemy furnace, I'll give you the right to control the first 10 levels of the Transcendence Pagoda." As he spoke, the illusory figure took out a round stone. The stone was golden in color, and it emitted a golden radiance. Force out a drop of blood essence and drip it on it. The illusory figure threw the stone to Ning Yu and said. Ning Yu didn't hesitate and immediately forced out a drop of blood essence and dripped it on the stone. Gotcha! Just as the blood essence dripped on the stone, it turned soft and actually shattered. When the stone shattered, countless fragments turned into specks of light and entered Ning Yu's sea of consciousness. When the fragments entered his sea of consciousness, Ning Yu felt that his relationship with the Transcendence Pagoda had deepened countless times. This feeling was even more intense than when he controlled the Transcendence Pagoda in his previous life. Could the Transcendence Pagoda really have an 11th level, or a 12th level? Ning Yu was puzzled. In his previous life, he had controlled the Transcendence Pagoda, but that feeling wasn't as intense as it was now. Ning Yu could feel that the Transcendence Pagoda wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. The Transcendence Pagoda was a magic treasure, and its grade was many times higher than the Red Demon Sword. "Alright, since you've controlled the Transcendence Pagoda, I have a favor to ask of you." The illusory figure turned and pointed at the golden-haired girl sitting cross-legged. Chapter 1411. Chapter 1411. Chapter 1411 thoroughly finished, Senior. Hearing the illusory figure's words, Ning Yu opened his mouth, wanting to say something but hesitating. "What? Is there a problem?" The illusory figure frowned. "There's no problem, but my cultivation is only at the 8th grade middle human sovereign realm. Furthermore, I have an important matter to attend to." Ning Yu gritted his teeth and said, "Can I take her to the ice domain after I'm done with that matter?" It wasn't that Ning Yu didn't want to help the illusory figure, but he did have something important to do. 100 Flowers Palace. Since he had agreed to help the palatial mistress, he wouldn't go back on his word. Now, the illusory figure had asked him to bring the golden-haired little girl to the ice realm. He was indeed in a difficult position. "That's fine, there's no rush." The illusory figure smiled and said, "As long as you leave within 3 years, there won't be a problem." "Thank you, Senior." Ning Yu hurriedly thanked him. After thinking for a while, Ning Yu spoke again. Senior, the patriarchs of the Emperor Divine Palace and the Jin family are trapped here. I'm afraid that they will find trouble with me. Di Patian and Jin Xinghai were trapped in the Tower of Ascension. Wouldn't the people of Emperor Divine Palace and Jin clan be worried to death? The two sects had offended a lot of people. If the news of their old ancestor being trapped got out, all kinds of enemies would come knocking on their door. In order to save their patriarchs, the Emperor Divine Palace and the Jin family would have to risk their lives. This is indeed troublesome. After pondering for a moment, the illusory figure said, "How about this? Before I leave, I'll help you control them. That way, even if you encounter danger, they can help you block it." As he spoke, the illusory figure waved his hand and directly tore through the void with the huge cage and disappeared. Genie? After the illusory figure disappeared, Ningyu was a little dumbfounded. It was because the illusory figure had forgotten a single person, the Jin family's peak 9th rank pill refiner, Jin Yi. Jin Yi was still trapped by a giant net. If she tore apart the giant net, wouldn't he be finished? Oh right. Suddenly, Ningyu slapped his head and cursed himself for being so stupid. Now that he had control over the first 10 levels of the Tower of Ascension, unless a heavenly sovereign appeared, he was the absolute ruler. Jin Yi, submit to me. Ningyu's footsteps moved, arriving at Jin Yi's side and said, "You want me to submit to you? Have you lost your mind?" Jin Yi stared blankly for a moment and then she said proudly, "I am a grand peak 9th grade alchemist. You actually want me to submit to you, you ah." Jin Yi's prideful words had only been spoken halfway when she released a miserable cry like that of a pig being slaughtered. A flame appeared on the fingertip of Ningyu's right hand, roasting Jin Yi. "Are you being disobedient? No problem, I have a way to deal with you." Not only could the demonic lotus flame be used to refine pills, but it could also be used to burn others, making them wish they were dead. "Stop. I don't." Being burned by the demonic lotus flames, Jin Yi was even stuttering a bit. Trapped in the giant net, she indeed had no way to resist. She could only be a fish on the chopping block, waiting to be slaughtered. Voila! Ningyu did not listen to Jin Yi's cries for help as he continued to increase the flames. In a moment of carelessness, he had burned the corner of Jin Yi's clothes. "I'll submit to you!" Jin Yi yelled out in a panic. "Russell!" Hearing her words, Ningyu retracted his hand and said, "Open your mind, let my soul force enter your sea of consciousness." Originally, if Ningyu wanted to control Jin Yi, he would have to do something. But Jin Yi was trapped in the net, and she couldn't unleash her strength. She could only be tortured by Ningyu. Submit and you can live. If you don't submit, then you can only be tortured to death. Clearly, Jin Yi was smart, and she chose to submit to Ningyu. Not bad. Go to the 9th level of the Ascension Pagoda and wait there. Without my permission, you can't go out. Sensing the connection with Jin Yi's sea of consciousness, Ningyu was extremely satisfied. Right now, he only needed a thought to kill Jin Yi. Although Jin Yi was a 7th grade Earth Sovereign with the strength of her soul force, she did not dare to act rashly under Ningyu's control. It was so much so that if she dared to have any strange thoughts, Ningyu would make her wish that she was dead. "Russell!" Jin Yi's silhouette flickered and she entered the passage that Ningyu had constructed for her, entering the 9th level of the Ascension Pagoda. What's the relationship between the golden-haired girl and that illusory figure? Could she be his daughter? After Jin Yi left, Ningyu examined the golden-haired girl. After a while, Ningyu felt that it would take at least a few days for the golden-haired girl to wake up. After a brief pondering, Ningyu moved his feet and walked towards the entrance of the 10th level of the Ascension Pagoda. Not long after, Ningyu arrived at the entrance of the 10th level. Grandmaster Xing Yun. When he came to the entrance, Ningyu saw Grandmaster Xing Yun sitting on the ground with a weak aura. Although Demon Slayer and the others did not kill Grandmaster Xing Yun, they heavily injured him. Grandmaster Xing Yun's injuries were very serious. Without a few days of recuperation, he would not be able to fully recover. Ning Yu, you controlled the Ascension Pagoda? Grandmaster Xing Yun felt that Ning Yu was different the moment he saw Ning Yu. In other words, Ning Yu's temperament was very similar to his master's. I was just lucky. From this incident, Ning Yu could tell that Grandmaster Xing Yun did not forget his master, in other words, himself. However, Ning Yu did not intend to tell Grandmaster Xing Yun that he had been reborn. After thinking for a while, Ning Yu said, I plan to leave the Ascension Pagoda now. Do you want to go with me? Of course I'm going out. The soul chain array is about to be broken. I have to go out and take charge of the situation as soon as possible. Grandmaster Xing Yun gritted his teeth and said, Since you control the Ascension Pagoda, I have a presumptuous request. Ning Yu said, Can you lend me the Ascension Pagoda for the time being? Grandmaster Xing Yun asked. Your injuries are very serious. If you use the Ascension Pagoda again, you might die on the spot. Ning Yu slowly shook his head and said, The Emperor Palace, Jin Clan, and Pinnacle 9th Grade Earth Sovereigns are outside. Even if I lend you the Ascension Pagoda, you're not confident in dealing with them. Even if I die, I have to protect the Nebula Academy. Grandmaster Xing Yun said in a solemn voice, Back then, my master was besieged on the peak of the Sky Demon Mountain. I felt guilty for not being able to save him. That's why I founded the Nebula Academy and nurtured many peerless geniuses. The Emperor Palace and Jin Clan actually massacred the students of the Nebula Academy for the illusory demonic lotus flame and heavenly fire pellet furnace. I will definitely take revenge for this. Grandmaster Xing Yun was very decisive, as if he had no regrets even if he died. Don't be rash. If you really can't do it, I will let the students and teachers of the Nebula Academy enter the Ascension Pagoda and bring them away. Ning Yu shook his head and said, Go to the 9th level of the Ascension Pagoda to heal your injuries first. Jin E of the Jin Clan will help you recover as soon as possible. As for the Nebula Academy, leave it to me for the time being. Crack. Chapter 14:12. Breach. Everyone, let's work harder. We'll be able to destroy the Soul Chains array soon. In the sky above Nebula Academy, the experts of Emperor Divine Palace continued to attack the Soul Chain Grand Array. Every time they attacked, the Grand Spiritual Chain formation would tremble. After a long period of attacks, the Soul Chains array was on the verge of collapsing. Jin Xiong, it's been a pleasure working with you. An old man from the Emperor Palace flashed and appeared beside the Jin clan in the blink of an eye. The name of this old man was Di Peng, a Pinnacle 9th Grade Earth Sovereign. Initially, it wasn't easy for the Emperor Palace to destroy the Soul Chains array. It could even be said that they would need to exhaust a great amount of energy. But at the crucial moment, Jin Xiong announced that the Jin clan would join in the attack, thus reducing the pressure on the Emperor Palace. In addition to the fact that Jin Xiong was a quasi-heavenly sovereign, while Di Peng was only a Pinnacle 9th Grade Earth Sovereign. So it was natural for Di Peng to express his gratitude. It's fine. My Jin clan is also in the Ascension Pagoda, so it's only natural for us to work together. Jin Xiong waved his hand. I suggest that we surround the Ascension Pagoda and plunder the Nebula Academy to see if there are any treasures or elixirs left behind. I agree. Di Peng nodded his head and waved his hand. Everyone, listen to my command. Prepare to attack. Rumble. Along with Di Peng's bark, the experts of the Emperor Palace, Jin clan, and even the wandering cultivators brought by the overwhelming Pill Demon all attacked the Soul Chains array. The Soul Chains array was violently trembling, and now that it was struck by so many attacks, it couldn't hold on any longer and shattered. Rustle. The shattering of the Soul Chains array meant that the gates of the Nebula Academy were wide open. The Emperor Palace, Jin clan, and wandering cultivators all flew out and landed in the Nebula Academy. A portion of them surrounded the Ascension Pagoda, while another portion surrounded the Berserker clan, and another portion went to plunder the Nebula Academy. At this moment, the Nebula Academy had fallen. Sigh, I never expected that the Nebula Academy would fail after preparing for so long. Yeah, but Master Nebula should have many old friends. Why haven't I seen them? Old friend? Let me tell you, but don't tell anyone else. The God Emperor Palace and Jin family have also contacted many heavenly sovereigns, and Master Xingyun's friends were all obstructed. So that's how it is. No wonder the Nebula Academy has been surrounded for so long, but we still haven't seen Grandmaster Xingyun's friends. From now on, the Nebula Academy has come to an end. I just don't know who will obtain the magical treasures and pills of the Nebula Academy. Seeing the experts of the Emperor Divine Palace and the Jin family swarming into the Nebula Academy, the people around started to discuss. Some rejoiced in his misfortune, while others felt sorry for him. Some did not care about it, so they just let it go. Even some forces that wanted to help Nebula Academy shook their heads one after another and chose to leave. Now that the Soul Chain Array had been broken, there was no turning back. Nebula Academy was destined to become a thing of the past. Behave yourselves. The commotion didn't last long before it became quiet again. Di Pring kicked Quang Zhan's butt, causing him to fall flat on his face. He said, "Your fates have come to an end. Today, even if the Emperor of Heaven comes, you will still die." In an open space in front of the Tower of Yuzuan, a few people were lying on the ground, vomiting blood. These people were the mentors of the Nebula Academy, Quang Zhan and Yao Qiong. The others could leave, after all, they didn't have a deep relationship with Grandmaster Xingyun. However, they couldn't leave. They had a close relationship with Grandmaster Xingyun. Even if they ran to the ends of the earth, they would still be caught. "Kill me now if you have the ability," Quang Zhan spat and said coldly. "Trash, idiot." Crack. Di Ping raised his right foot and stomped heavily on Quang Zhan, breaking several of his ribs. "Don't be stubborn. When the old ancestor and the others leave the Tower of Yuzuan, it will be your death." The corner of Di Ping's mouth curled up. He said, "But don't worry, I won't damage your body because I want to use it to refine a puppet." "Humph." Quang Zhan snorted coldly and said no more. Quang Zhan didn't believe that Grandmaster Xingyun would be defeated so quickly. Before Grandmaster Xingyun left the Tower of Yuzuan, no one knew who would win. Although Quang Zhan loved to fight, he was smart. The reason why he shouted at Di Peng was to probe Di Peng's strength. If Di Peng really killed him, it meant that the Emperor Palace had obtained the absolute advantage in the Tower of Yuzuan. Since Di Peng did not kill him, it meant that there was still room for negotiation. "How is it? Did you manage to contact Grandmaster Tian?" Jin Xiong came to Di Peng's side and asked. "I haven't managed to contact Grandmaster Jin Yi. I seem to have completely lost contact with her." "I haven't managed to contact Grandmaster Tian either." Di Peng shook his head and looked at the wandering cultivators. "Have you guys managed to contact the overwhelming pill demon?" It was understandable that they couldn't contact Tian Mingtao and Jin Yi because of the Soul Chains Array. But now that they had broken the Soul Chains Array, they still couldn't contact Tian Mingtao and Jin Yi. That was a problem. There was also a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign on the wandering cultivator's side. His name was Mo Shan. He shook his head as well. "I can't contact the overwhelming pill demon." Furthermore, Mo Shan didn't finish his sentence. "What's going on?" Di Peng and Jin Xiong asked, feeling that something was amiss. Furthermore, the soul jade token left behind by the overwhelming pill demon seems to have cracked. Mo Shan said in a deep voice, "I have a good relationship with overwhelming pill devil. Before coming, he gave me a piece of his own soul jade tablet." Mo Shan reached into his pocket and took out a broken soul jade token. 2 broken characters could be vaguely seen on the soul jade token. How ran? His. Di Peng and Jin Xiong's faces turned extremely ugly when they saw the soul jade token in Mo Shan's hand. They sucked in a cold breath at the same time. In the next moment, they quickly took out an interspatial pouch and took out a soul jade token. Fortunately, Grandmaster Jin Yi's soul jade token did not shatter. That means she's still alive. Thank the heavens. Jin Xiong revealed a relieved expression as he looked at the intact soul jade token in his hand. The Jin clan had already suffered heavy losses in the Void Realm. If they lost Grandmaster Jin Yi as well, the consequences would be unimaginable. What? Some rejoiced, some were worried. Di Peng looked at the shattered soul jade token in his hand. His face was pale and pale. The interspatial pouch contained the soul jade tokens of Di Wuba, Tian Mingtao, and the others. Now that the soul jade tokens had shattered, didn't that mean that Tian Mingtao, Di Wuba, and the others had all died in the Tower of Ascension? Tian Mingtao was still fine. After all, he wasn't a member of the Emperor Palace. But Di Wuba, Di He, Di Bai, and the long-haired woman were all experts of the Emperor Palace. Now that they had all died in the Tower of Ascension, the Emperor Palace's strength had dropped by a third. Just what is inside the Tower of Ascension? Chapter 14-13. The game begins. Seal the news. No matter what, we can't let the news of Di Wuba's death spread. Di Peng said with a cold gaze. Di Wuba was the Grand Elder of Celestial Emperor Palace. If his enemies knew that he died in the Tower of Ascension, the consequences would be unimaginable. Before the ancestor of Celestial Emperor Palace came out of the Tower of Ascension, he had to seal the entire Nebula Academy. Also, isolate the Nebula Academy for the time being. No one is to enter without my permission. After a brief thought, Di Peng continued. If anyone tries to force their way in, kill them without mercy. Jin Xiong opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out in the end. He had some interactions with Di Wuba at the entrance of the Kanwu secret realm. Who would have thought that Di Wuba would die in the Tower of Ascension so quickly? At the same time, Jin Xiong rejoiced that he didn't foolishly enter the Tower of Ascension. Otherwise, he would have most likely died. Bring Yao Qiong over here, Di Peng said with a cold gaze. Boom. Hearing Di Peng's words, an expert from Emperor God Palace kicked Yao Qiong to Di Peng's feet. Speak. Tell me everything you know about the Tower of Ascension. Di Peng's tone was unquestionable. I don't know anything. Yao Qiong gritted her teeth. Even Di Wuba died in the Tower of Ascension. Looks like your good days are coming to an end. When my master comes out, it will be your time of death. You're still so stubborn even in the face of death. Slap yourself, Di Peng berated. Russell. When Di Peng finished his words, a first-grade Earth Sovereign beside him moved towards Yao Qiong. He raised his right hand and slapped Yao Qiong's face. Whoosh. At this moment, the situation suddenly changed. A massive sword luster suddenly shot out from the Sovereign of Yu Pagoda and charged towards the first-grade Earth Sovereign of the Divine Emperor Palace at a shocking speed. Not good. The first-grade Earth Supreme Expert from the Emperor Palace was decisive. He immediately gave up on Yao Qiong and retreated. However, the sword ray was half a beat faster than him. In the blink of an eye, the sword ray arrived before him and slashed towards his chest. Block. At this critical moment, the first-grade Earth Sovereign waved his hands and formed a small barrier before him. There's no need to do anything. Seeing the situation of the first-grade Earth Sovereign, the two second-grade Earth Sovereigns beside Di Peng wanted to help. However, Di Peng waved his hand and said, "It's just a sword light. There's nothing to fear." All right. The two second-grade Earth Sovereigns nodded and did not make a move. Voila! However, when the sword ray struck the barrier before the first-grade Earth Sovereign, it suddenly expanded and turned into dozens of sword rays. Not good. The sudden change caused Di Peng's expression to change drastically. If there was only one sword light, the first-grade Earth Sovereign from the Divine Emperor Palace would naturally be able to block it. But now there were dozens of sword lights. Not to mention a first-grade Earth Sovereign, even a second-grade Earth Sovereign might not be able to withstand it. Gotcha. As the sword light expanded, even a ninth-grade Earth Sovereign like Di Peng couldn't block it. Under the attack of several sword lights, the Yuan Qi light shield in front of the Divine Emperor Palace's first-grade Earth Supreme was shattered, and his heart was pierced by the sword lights. At this moment, the first-grade Earth Sovereign of the Divine Emperor Palace died on the spot. Rumble. The death of the first-grade Earth Sovereign caused the surroundings to be in silence. No one expected that it wasn't safe outside the Tower of Yuzuan. Although it was only a first-grade Earth Sovereign, everyone knew that this was a warning from the cultivators in the Tower of Yuzuan. This time, it was a first-grade Earth Sovereign. Who knew if it would be a second-grade Earth Sovereign, third-grade Earth Sovereign, or even a ninth-grade Earth Sovereign? After all, even Di Wuba and the rest had died in the Tower of Yuzuan, so what else was impossible? Everyone gather together. Do not separate. Di Peng, Jin Xiong, and Mo Shan's faces changed. Voila! Thereafter, the Divine Emperor Palace, the Jin clan, and the wandering cultivators gathered together. As for Quang Zhan, Yao Qiong, and the rest of the Nebula Academy, they were exposed. Swish! Not long after, a skinny figure slowly walked out from the entrance of the first level of the Tower of Yuzuan. Ning Yu. Jin Xiong was stunned when he saw the young cultivator walking out of the Tower of Yuzuan. You're also in the Tower of Yuzuan? Since Di Wuba knew about Ning Yu, so did Jin Xiong. After all, Ning Yu's portrait had already spread among the higher echelons of the Divine Emperor Palace, the Jin clan, the Broken Dragon Valley, and the other forces. It was hard for him not to be famous after causing such a huge commotion in the Void Realm. However, Jin Xiong and the rest did not publicize Ning Yu's feat because they wanted to secretly capture Ning Yu and obtain the fortune from Ning Yu. Everyone, please forgive me for not welcoming you earlier. Ning Yu cupped his fists at Jin Xiong and the rest. How about this? I'll host a banquet in the guest hall as an apology. The entire area was extremely quiet. No one answered Ning Yu. They already knew that Di Wuba, Tian Mingtao, Righteous Pill Demon, and the rest had died in the Tower of Yuzuan. Moreover, Ning Yu had just come out of the Tower of Yuzuan. This was more thought-provoking. Could it be that the person who killed Di Wuba and the rest was not Grandmaster Xingyun, but Ning Yu? For a moment, everyone's thoughts raced. No one moved and no one spoke. Yao Qiong, you guys leave first. Ning Yu did not care whether Jin Xiong and the rest replied. He smiled at Yao Qiong and the rest. There's nothing for you to do here. Where's my master? Yao Qiong did not leave immediately. Instead, she stared at Ning Yu and asked. Yao Qiong's question was also what Jin Xiong and the rest wanted to ask. After going through so many hardships and losing so many experts in the Tower of Yuzuan, how could Jin Xiong and the rest be willing? The reason they did not make a move against Ning Yu was because they did not want to take the risk before they understood the situation. Once they understood the situation, they would immediately capture Ning Yu and let Ning Yu know why the flowers were so red. Your master? He's on the 9th floor of the Tower of Yuzuan. Do you want me to get him to come out and greet you? Ning Yu frowned slightly, then shouted at the Tower of Yuzuan, Grandmaster Xingyun, everyone wants to see you. Why don't you say a few words to everyone? Swish. Hearing Ning Yu's words, everyone turned to look at the Tower of Yuzuan. Everyone wanted to know if Grandmaster Xingyun had died in the Tower of Yuzuan. Thank you for your concern. I'm fine. Grandmaster Xingyun did not make everyone wait for too long. A few minutes later, he said in a clear voice, Those who come from afar are guests. If you want to discuss, let little friend Ning Yu entertain you on my behalf. Gotcha. Master Xingyun's words had a very powerful lethality. It seemed to shatter the hope in Jin Xiong and the rest's hearts. How was this possible? Even someone as strong as Di Wuba Tian Mingtao, and even the overwhelming pill demon had died in the Tower of Yuzuan. Chapter 1414 Battle Royale. Master Xingyun, I would like to ask if Jin Yi's life is in danger? Although Jin Xiong's expression was ugly, he still asked. Whether or not Jin Yi could survive was related to whether or not the Jin family could continue to prosper. It should be known that a peak level 9 alchemist was very important to a large force. An ordinary late-stage 9th grade alchemist could become a distinguished guest of the major forces, let alone a 9th grade peak alchemist. The Jin family of the Thousand Leaves Empire had 3 branches. The reason why they could control the Thousand Leaves Empire was because of Jin Yi. If Jin Yi couldn't survive, it would have a huge impact on the Jin family. Not yet. Master Xingyun continued, however. Whether or not Jin Yi can survive has nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with you? Jin Xiong was confused. He didn't know what Master Xingyun was planning. Jin Yi's life is in your hands. After Master Xingyun said this, he fell silent and didn't say anything else. In our hands? Jin Xiong thought back to this sentence. Suddenly, Jin Xiong's expression became ugly. He understood. He understood everything. Great Master Xingyun had killed Tian Mingtao, Di Wuba, and even the overwhelming Dan Devil had been killed. He had only trapped Jin Yi, all for the sake of making their Jin family and Emperor Divine Palace turn against each other and kill each other. This scheme could not be said to not be vicious. If Master Xingyun said it directly, Di Peng might not believe it. However, his tone was a bit thought-provoking. Did he really fall for it? Jin Xiong glanced at Di Peng and Emo Shan and his heart skipped a beat. If Master Xingyun's plan really came true, the consequences would be unimaginable. Jin Xiong, you need to give us an explanation. Di Peng and Emo Shan said in unison. Their expressions were ugly. Although they were more inclined to think that Master Xingyun was sowing discord, the warriors they brought didn't think so. In order to dispel everyone's suspicions, Di Peng and Emo Shan could only ask Jin Xiong for an explanation. I don't know what's going on either. Jin Xiong wanted to cry. Master Xingyun gave him a ruthless attack at this time, causing the Jin family to fall into a passive position. If this matter could not be resolved properly, even he might fall here. After all, the Emperor Divine Palace had lost Di Wuba and the others, and the rogue cultivators had lost Hao Ran Pill Devil. Only the Jin family had no casualties. For the sake of balance, Di Peng and Emo Shan would probably reach an agreement to kill him. Don't listen to Grandmaster Xingyun's bewitchment. Let's join hands to attack Nebula Academy. Grandmaster Xingyun can't wait for us to kill each other. Jin Xiong hastily explained. Humph. Both our forces suffered casualties, but only your Kim family didn't. Isn't that enough to prove something? Jin Xiong, don't think that you can do whatever you want here in the Thousand Leaves Empire. Our Imperial Divine Palace is not to be trifled with. We rogue cultivators are also very united. Before we came here, we already said that whoever dares to betray us will be killed without mercy. Kill without mercy. Jin Xiong's explanation obviously did not satisfy Emperor God Palace and the rogue cultivators. They all wanted an explanation from Jin Xiong. In this kind of situation, if Jin Xiong could not give a reasonable explanation, there would most likely be a bloody battle. Jin Xiong, what are you afraid of? I obtained a good treasure in the Tower of Ascension. Moreover, the patriarchs of Emperor Palace and rogue cultivators are all trapped by Patriarch Jin Xinghai. It won't be long before the Tower of Ascension will be under our Jin family's control. At that time, our Jin family will trample Emperor Palace, trample the rogue cultivators, and trample the lair of Demon Slayer. What he feared had really come. Jin Yi's cold voice came from the Tower of Ascension and resounded throughout Nebula Academy. Obviously, the reason why Jin Yi said this was completely because of Ning Yu's interference. At first, Ning Yu was still thinking about how to escape, but Grandmaster Xing Yun's words inspired him. Why not let the Emperor Palace and the Jin family become enemies? In any case, the patriarchs of the three forces were all controlled by the illusory figure. No one would know what he said. Poochie. Inside the Tower of Ascension, Jin Yi spat out a large mouthful of blood. In order to resist Ning Yu, she didn't hesitate to ignite her blood essence and wanted to self-destruct. However, Ning Yu's control over her was too strong. It was so strong that she had no choice but to do as Ning Yu said. After speaking, Jin Yi sat on the ground, paralyzed. Huff. Outside the Tower of Ascension, when Jin Yi finished speaking, Ning Yu let out a long breath. Although he controlled Jin Yi, making her say those words still exhausted a lot of Ning Yu's energy. Jin Yi's obsession was too deep. She didn't want to become enemies with the Jin family. Looks like if I want to completely control Jin Yi, I'll have to reach the 9th grade human sovereign realm or earth sovereign realm as soon as possible. Shaking his head, Ning Yu murmured. Ning Yu's cultivation was only at the 8th grade middle phase human sovereign realm, which was nearly a level lower than Jin Yi. Adding on the fact that their soul forces weren't on the same level, it would be difficult for Ning Yu to completely control Jin Yi. However, this was already enough. Jin Yi's words had already caused a huge uproar among the Emperor Palace and the wandering cultivators. Jin Xiong, what else do you have to say? Di Peng took a step forward and unleashed his aura. He said coldly, I was wondering why Di Wuba and the others would die in the Tower of Ascension. So it was all part of your plan. Jin Xiong, overwhelming pill demon is my good friend. You must pay the price for plotting to kill him. Emo Shan said solemnly. Listen to my explanation. It's not what you think. Jin Xiong wanted to cry. The situation was very sensitive. As long as the Emperor Palace and the wandering cultivators attacked, the Jin family would definitely suffer heavy losses. Whether it was the Emperor Palace or the wandering cultivators, they weren't any weaker than the Jin family. The only advantage the Jin family had was his cultivation, which was a half-step heaven supreme. However, even if he was a half-step heaven supreme, he couldn't kill them so quickly. He could only face them head-on. He could survive, but the Jin family's cultivators would be in danger. There were many experts in the Emperor Palace and the wandering cultivators. What's there to explain? Let's go and avenge the Great Elder. Charge, kill the Jin family's bastards. We can't let them have an easy time. Friends from the Emperor Palace, we'll help you. Yes, we're all on the same side now. Let's kill the Jin family first. The Jin family is insane, they deserve to die. Should we kill the Nebula Academy people as well? Let's put the Nebula Academy people aside and kill the Jin family first. A great battle broke out in an instant. Someone wanted to attack the Nebula Academy cultivators, but was stopped by another cultivator. In their opinion, the Nebula Academy people were all weaklings. Chapter 14-15. Wait. Everyone from Nebula Academy, retreat and give them enough space to fight. Ning Yu didn't want to get involved in the battle between the Emperor Palace and the Jin clan. This was the kind of situation he really wanted to see. As the saying goes, when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Today, he was going to be the so-called fisherman and reap the benefits for a while. Rumble. The battle in front of the Tower of Ascension was intense. Di Peng and Emo Shan joined hands to deal with Jin Xiong, and every move was a killing move. Di Peng and Emo Shan were only peak 9th grade Earth Sovereigns, while Jin Xiong was a half-step Heavenly Supreme. Therefore, they couldn't gain the upper hand even if they joined forces. In fact, he was even at a slight disadvantage. Listen to me. It's not what you think. Jin Xiong spoke as he displayed the strength of a quasi-heavenly sovereign. Humph. There's nothing to explain. Someone from the Emperor Palace died in the Tower of Ascension, and it's all because of your Jin clan. Di Peng snorted and launched a terrifying attack. Jin Xiong dodged the attack and said to Emo-shan, "Emo-shan, listen to me. Our Jin clan has no reason to attack you wandering cultivators. Don't talk nonsense. If you really have a grievance, why don't you ask Jin Yi to come out and confront us?" Emo-shan shouted. Jin Xiong gritted his teeth, but he didn't want to completely fall out with the Emperor Palace and the wandering cultivators. Their Jin clan was already in a mess. If they provoked the Emperor Palace and the wandering cultivators, they wouldn't be far from decline. In the distance, Ningyu saw Jin Xiong and the others chattering. He immediately took a deep breath and shouted. A cultivator from the Jin clan was killed. Everyone, attack! Rumble! Ningyu's shout had a decisive effect. Especially the people of the Jin family, they were even more furious. How could they tolerate someone from their clan being killed? There was no need to tolerate it anymore. The experts of the Jin clan unleashed their terrifying attacks, no longer holding back. Some of the Jin family's experts even used their trump cards and summoned a giant puppet. The puppet's cultivation had reached the 8th grade Earth Sovereign realm. Seeing that the warriors of the Jin family were going crazy, the warriors of the Emperor Divine Palace didn't hold back. They also took out their puppets and fought with the Jin family's puppet. The scene became more and more chaotic. In midair, Jin Xiong looked at the chaotic battle below, and his expression became extremely ugly. "Since you besieged the Jin family, don't blame me for being impolite." Jin Xiong's face was cold as he unleashed his heavenly sovereign pressure towards Di Peng. Although Jin Xiong was a quasi-heavenly sovereign, he could already unleash a portion of the pressure of a heavenly sovereign. Under the pressure of a heavenly supreme, Di Peng retreated again and again, not daring to face it head-on. "Go!" After taking a few steps back, Di Peng suddenly took out a scroll from his bosom and threw it at Jin Xiong. Boom! Before the scroll could reach Jin Xiong, it suddenly exploded. Then, a cold light shot towards Jin Xiong at an extremely terrifying speed. Desert palm. On the other side, Emo-shan waved his hands continuously, instantly creating a terrifying palm print. The palm prints gradually changed, and together with the cold light, they all blasted towards Jin Xiong. Child's play. Facing the two attacks, Jin Xiong was extremely nervous in his heart, despite his words. Di Peng and Emo-shan were both pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereigns, so how could they execute such terrifying attacks? They were clearly fake pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereigns. In other words, they were extremely close to the quasi-heavenly sovereign realm. Poof! Even if Jin Xiong tried his best to resist, he was still struck in the chest by the powerful attack and vomited a mouthful of blood. Crack! Wiping the blood on the corner of his lips, Jin Xiong clenched his fists and coldly said, "You guys have thoroughly enraged me. To reward you guys, I will kill all of you." Jin Xiong was extremely terrifying when he was enraged. No matter what, Jin Xiong was a quasi-heavenly sovereign. Di Peng and Emo-shan's faces turned grave when they saw him enraged. They did not dare to be careless. "They're going all out just like that?" In another quiet region, the elders and teachers of the Nebula Academy couldn't help gulping down a mouthful of saliva. At the same time, they shifted their gazes towards Ningyu. Just who was Ningyu? Why did he cause Jin Xiong and Di Peng to fight with just a few words? Furthermore, was it true that the Jin family and Master Nebula had joined forces? "Ningyu, did the Jin family really join forces with my master?" Yao Qiong asked as she stared at Ningyu. "Join your head." Ningyu rolled his eyes. "You guys better hope that both sides suffer. Otherwise, it'll be hard for us to escape." Hearing Ningyu's words, not only did Yao Qiong's face turn dark, but even the elders of the Nebula Academy also had dark lines on their faces. "There's a fight going on over there, and we're also in a dangerous situation. Yet you can still say such words? Just how big is your heart?" On the Nebula Academy side, everyone was in low spirit. No one would be happy to entrust their fate to someone else. Don't be so depressed. Ningyu waved his hand. If there's no other way, we'll enter the Tower of Yuzuan. Jin Xiong and the others won't dare to enter anyway. In fact, Ningyu had already thought about it. If the Emperor Palace and the Jin family didn't let him go, he would bring the Nebula Academy's people into the Tower of Yuzuan and cultivate there. Although the Tower of Yuzuan might be obtained by the Jin family, Ningyu wasn't afraid. As long as he waited for a few days, when the illusory figure completely controlled Demon Slayer, the situation would instantly turn around. Dipatian and the others were all Sky Sovereigns. With a few more Sky Sovereigns, Ningyu could even kill his way to the Jin family and flatten them. Of course, the situation wasn't that bad yet. What if Jin Xiong and the others fought and both sides suffered? You're very strong. How long will it take for you to recover? Ningyu moved to Quang Zhan's side and asked. If the Jin family and the Emperor Palace both suffered heavy losses, then the burden would fall on Quang Zhan. Quang Zhan was a 9th grade Earth Sovereign. If he could recover to his peak state, it would determine if they could still have their peak fighting strength. Half an hour. Quang Zhan had already gradually acknowledged Ningyu. That's good. Ningyu nodded his head and continued. Now, let me tell you what we should do next. Russell. Ningyu's words had completely hooked everyone's thoughts. Everyone stood up with fighting spirit in high spirits. Don't be nervous. Relax. Everyone's reaction made Ningyu a little embarrassed. Waving his hand, Ningyu said, What we need to do is simple. There's only one word. What do you need us to do? Just say it. We'll do our best. Yao Qiong revealed a determined look as she spoke in a deep voice. Actually, it's nothing much. Ningyu shrugged his shoulders. Everyone, form a semicircle. Those with weaker cultivation will be on the inside, while those with stronger cultivation will be on the outside. Then, as he spoke, Ningyu briefly paused before he continued. Chapter 14-16. Both sides suffer weight? Ningyu's words stunned Yao Qiong and the rest for a moment before they revealed a puzzled expression. After all this time, you just want us to wait here? That's right, wait. Whether it was the Jin family, Emperor Palace, or those rogue cultivators, they all had advanced Earth Sovereigns and countless intermediate Earth Sovereigns. Asking Yao Qiong and the rest to fight at this time was undoubtedly sending them to their deaths. Ningyu wasn't a fool. Right now, there was only one thing they could do, wait. When Jin Xiong and Di Peng were both injured, and when the Emperor Palace and the Jin family were both injured, they would reap the benefits. But Yao Qiong opened her mouth slightly. No buts, just wait. Do you think I'll harm you? Ningyu's tone became a little cold. I understand your feelings, and I can tell you clearly that I also want to teach those scum of the Jin family and Emperor Palace a lesson, but, suddenly, Ningyu changed the topic. I'm a middle 8th grade human sovereign, and he has the highest cultivation among all of you. Ningyu pointed at Quang Zhan and said, even he is only a 9th grade Earth Supreme. Yao Qiong and the rest stood straight and listened to Ningyu's words. Forget it, just wait. Anyway, no one is allowed to make a move without my permission. Ningyu didn't want to waste too much time here, because he still had important things to do. He wanted to observe the battlefield in the distance and remember who was injured, who was dying, and who was still at their peak. All of this required a huge brain capacity, and Ningyu didn't want to be distracted here. Rumble. On the battlefield, everyone was fighting fiercely. Every second, someone was injured, and every minute, someone died. Both sides were in a killing frenzy, and no one would stop. Time was ticking away. In the blink of an eye, 10 minutes had passed. Only half of the Jin family's cultivators were still standing. After another 10 minutes, only a third of the Jin family martial artists were left standing. As for Emperor God Palace and the rogue cultivators, they weren't any better. 2/3 of the Jin family had been killed or injured, and half of the martial artists from the Emperor Divine Palace and the rogue cultivators had been killed or injured. When a person was on the brink of death, they could erupt with astonishing combat power. The Jin family was in the same situation. Since there was no way to escape, killing one was enough. Killing two was a profit. The Emperor Divine Palace was different from the rogue cultivators. They had the advantage. They were more conservative and wouldn't risk their lives. Just like that, the number of deaths of both sides was more than that of the Jin clan. There seems to be a huge battle in Nebula Academy? What do you mean by as if? A great battle has indeed broken out. Didn't you notice? The aftermath of the terrifying battle has spread throughout the Nebula Academy. Let's not join in the fun. The Emperor Divine Palace and the Jin family are both difficult to deal with. If we offend them, we will definitely die. The rogue cultivators gathered by the Howran Dan Devil are also vicious and evil. Whoever provokes them will not have a good result. Naturally, the battle in Nebula Academy couldn't be hidden for long. Soon, the people of Nebula City learned about it. However, the martial artists of Nebula City were very smart. They didn't care about it. In any case, the fate of the Nebula Academy had run out. Unless a few heavenly sovereigns appeared to turn the tide, the Nebula Academy was destined to decline. Sky Supreme? Master Nebula's old friend had long been stopped by the experts of the Emperor Divine Palace and the Jin family. At this time, no one knew where he was wandering. So, after today, Nebula Academy was doomed. Puff. In Nebula Academy, Jin Xiong was fighting against two opponents at the same time. Jin Xiong spat out a mouthful of blood and hurriedly said, Di Peng, Emo-shan, listen to me first. Humph. There is nothing to say. Today, either you die or we die. Di Peng and Emo-shan didn't want to listen to Jin Xiong's explanation. Their eyes were bloodshot. They must kill Jin Xiong today. Look at Ning Yu and the others. In a moment of desperation, Jin Xiong suddenly pointed at Ning Yu and shouted, This is all their plot. Jin Xiong's words played a crucial role. Di Peng and Emo-shan instantly stopped and shifted their gazes to Ning Yu. This glance directly made them spit out blood. They saw Ning Yu grinning at them and said, You too, how have you been? Puff. Di Peng and Emo-shan's faces were extremely ugly as they vomited blood. At this moment, there were only 3 words in their hearts. They were tricked. They understood the principle of the fisherman reaping the benefits when the sandpiper and clam fight. Right now, the sandpiper and clam were them and Jin Xiong, and the fisherman was obviously Ning Yu. Jin Xiong, Master Jin gave you the order to kill the 2 of them. Why haven't you made a move? Ning Yu slowly moved forward and said, Could it be that you want Master Jin to come out herself? On both sides of Ning Yu, there was a Nebula Academy elder. On the left was a peak 8th grade Earth Sovereign, Yang Kai, and on the right was a 9th grade Earth Sovereign, Kuang Zhan. After a period of recuperation, Kuang Zhan had already recovered to his peak state. With Kuang Zhan's current fighting strength, he could even fight a late-phase 9th grade Earth Sovereign or even a peak 9th grade Earth Sovereign. Kuang Zhan's physique was very special. Every time he was injured, as long as he didn't die, his strength would improve. Not long ago, he had just fought with Di He and Di Bai, so his fighting strength had increased a little. Ning Yu, don't try to sow dissension. Jin Xiong's face was extremely ugly. Because of Ning Yu's sowing dissension, his Jin family had suffered heavy losses. He definitely had to take revenge for this. Thereafter, Jin Xiong took out a soul jade token from his bosom. However, this soul jade token had completely shattered. Shaking the shattered soul jade token in his hand, Jin Xiong said, I took the wrong one just now. Master Jin Yi's soul jade token shattered half an hour ago. Seeing the shattered soul jade token in Jin Xiong's hand, Di Peng and Emo-shan's faces turned black. Although they knew that Jin Xiong was pretending, they had no choice but to believe him. Because if the battle continued, both sides would suffer heavy injuries, and even they would suffer heavy injuries. It was very likely that they would be killed by the berserkers beside Ningyu. Even now, they could only exert 50% of their peak strength. The strength they could exert right now was only on par with Quang Zhan. If they continued to fight, Quang Zhan would definitely take advantage of them. Everyone stop. Taking a deep breath, Di Peng said loudly, those from Emperor Palace on the left, and those from the Jin family on the right. Do everything possible to heal. Voila. Perhaps it was because they had been fighting for a long time, or perhaps they had seen the crux of the problem. The people from Emperor Palace, Jin family, and even the rogue cultivators retreated. In this chaotic battle, dozens of cultivators had died. From this moment on, the sphere of influence of Pill Formation Continent would be rewritten. Of course, this was all for later. Chapter 14-17. Shift. Your ancestor is trapped in the Tower of Ascension. Staring at Di Peng, Ningyu hesitated. Are you sure you want to kill me? Thump. Hearing Ningyu's threatening words, Di Peng's heart jolted. He vaguely felt that something was amiss. There was no reason for Ningyu to be so fearless. One must know that although he was injured, killing Ningyu was as easy as crushing an ant. Since Ningyu dared to say that, he must have some trump card. Could it be that the ancestor of the Emperor Palace was really trapped in the Tower of Ascension? Thinking about it, Di Peng's face turned unsightly. He might be a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign, but it wasn't easy for him to contact Ancestor Di Patian. Ancestor Di Patian had always been elusive, and he only agreed to annihilate the Nebula Academy because of another ancestor's persuasion. Don't try to scare me here. Seeing that Di Peng was a little stunned, Jin Xiong berated, Ningyu, you won't be able to escape today. As he spoke, Jin Xiong stomped on the ground and his figure shot out. Due to Ningyu's actions, the Jin family had suffered great losses. Jin Xiong wanted to settle this debt with Ningyu. Every day that he didn't kill Ningyu was another day that he wouldn't be satisfied. Only by killing Ningyu could the hatred in Jin Xiong's heart be resolved. Senior Quang Zhan, how confident are you in blocking Jin Xiong? Looking at Jin Xiong, who was getting closer, Ningyu lowered his voice. If it's not possible, then let's enter the Tower of Ascension first. I'm definitely not Jin Xiong's opponent at his peak, but I can fight him to a draw right now. A terrifying light flashed in Quang Zhan's eyes. He took a step forward and stood in front of Ningyu. His right hand clenched into a fist and collided with Jin Xiong's fist. Boom! When the two fists clashed, the two figures swiftly retreated. Jin Xiong took 4 steps back while Quang Zhan took 5 steps back. In comparison, Jin Xiong had a slight advantage. Is that all you can do? An arc rose on the corner of Quang Zhan's lips as he ridiculed. A quasi-heavenly sovereign is actually on par with me. If this gets out, it will definitely affect your reputation. Don't worry. Today's battle won't spread. Jin Xiong wasn't affected by Quang Zhan's words. He twisted his neck and said sinisterly, that was just a warm-up. The real battle is coming up next. Rumble. In the next moment, Jin Xiong unleashed his aura and soared into the sky. As the saying goes, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Using this phrase to describe Jin Xiong was very appropriate. If an ordinary pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign had the same injuries as him, then that pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign would definitely not be his opponent. In other words, if Di Peng and Emoshan were to fight Berserker, they might even lose. However, Jin Xiong was different. He was a quasi-heavenly sovereign, and his foundation was stronger than Di Peng and Emoshan. How did Berserker become so powerful? Initially, Di Peng and Emoshan wanted to teach Ningyu a lesson. But when they saw that Jin Xiong and Quang Zhan were on par, they immediately stopped. That was a close call. Fortunately, Jin Xiong and Berserker were fighting. Otherwise, there was a high chance that any one of them would lose. Bring all the teachers and elders into the Ascension Pagoda. The battle between Jin Xiong and Quang Zhan had attracted the attention of many cultivators. It was so much so that even the Divine Emperor Palace, the Jin clan, and the unaffiliated cultivators had directed their gazes over. Their reaction had given Ning Yu an opportunity. Ning Yu whispered to the 8th grade Earth Sovereign beside him, "Be quick and bring everyone." "No problem." The 8th grade Earth Sovereign beside Ning Yu nodded his head and started to make preparations. In order to attract Di Peng and Mo Shan's attention, Ning Yu could only bite the bullet and take a few steps forward. "Di Peng, Mo Shan, you're both pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereigns. How about it? Are you interested in exchanging a few blows with Quang Zhan?" Ning Yu was smart. He did not beat around the bush. Instead, he talked to Di Peng and Mo Shan directly. As the saying goes, touch the pot that doesn't boil. You're courting death. As expected, Ning Yu's words had thoroughly enraged Di Peng and Mo Shan. The two of them were enraged and unleashed their auras. "If you want to make a move against me, I'm more than happy to oblige." Ning Yu used his Yuan Qi to resist the two terrifying auras while acting as if nothing had happened. "If you don't want to make a move against me, you can wait until Quang Zhan kills Jin Xiong." "Quang Zhan can kill Jin Xiong? Are you sure you're not messing with me?" Di Peng and Mo Shan said in disdain. "Jin Xiong might be injured, but not even 10 Quang Zhan can kill him." "I know Quang Zhan can't kill Jin Xiong." Ning Yu nodded and did not refute them. Di Peng and Mo Shan were slightly taken aback. "Then what do you mean? You want us to fight Quang Zhan?" "Wrong again. Guess again." Ning Yu shook his head. "I guess you're a jungler." Di Peng and Mo Shan gnashed their teeth in anger. "This is too much. Ning Yu is too much. There's no need to endure it anymore." In the next instant, Di Peng turned into a shadow and appeared in front of Ning Yu. Block. Ning Yu did not choose to dodge this punch. Instead, he chose to take it head-on. Bang! His right hand crossed in front of him, firmly blocking Di Peng's punch. Poochie! Although Ning Yu's fist blocked the attack, he also spat out a large mouthful of blood. In order to block Di Peng's punch, Ning Yu used all his trump cards. Soul Power, Yuan Qi, and even the Law of Space and the sapling helped him. Even so, Ning Yu was unable to completely block it. He spat out a large mouthful of blood and felt his chest tighten. "Let me punch him too," Mo Shan hurriedly said when he saw that Di Peng was about to launch a second attack. The main culprit of the battle was Ning Yu, and several of Mo Shan's disciples had died in the battle. How could Mo Shan possibly see Ning Yu as an eyesore? Therefore, Mo Shan did not wish for Ning Yu to be killed. He wanted to punch Ning Yu a few more times to collect some interest. In the end, he would definitely torture Ning Yu to death. "Don't hit him." Di Peng retreated without saying a word. However, Ning Yu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and said, "Look over there." As he spoke, Ning Yu's right hand pointed towards the entrance of the Tower of Yu. There, Yao Qiong turned around and looked at Di Peng and the rest with a vicious expression. Then, she entered the Tower of Yu without looking back. They all went in? Mo Shan turned his head left and right. Unfortunately, no matter how he looked, he couldn't find a single person who stayed behind. Making use of his and Di Peng's carelessness, Ning Yu actually found a way to send all the elders and teachers of Nebula Academy into the Tower of Yu. The Tower of Yu was a terrifying place. Even a pinnacle grade 9 alchemist like Tian Mingtao and a pinnacle grade 9 Earth Sovereign like Di Wuba died inside, let alone them. Crack crack. Clenching his fists, Mo Shan's expression was extremely ugly. "It's fine for them to enter the Tower of Yu. As long as I can catch you, do you think they won't come out?" Chapter 1418. Chapter 1418. Chapter 1418 Leave, that's true, but can you catch me? The corner of Ning Yu's lips curled up. You and Di Peng were injured a long time ago. Against the two of you, I don't need to waste any energy. Am I deaf? Emo Shan was so shocked that he was almost speechless. Although he and Di Peng were both injured, capturing Ning Yu was still a piece of cake. Why did everything that came out of Ning Yu's mouth sound a little different? You're not deaf, that's exactly what I said. Ning Yu shrugged and said, if you can withstand one move from me, then you're good. The moment the word harm was heard, Ning Yu stomped on the ground and rushed toward Emo Shan. As he advanced, Ning Yu took out the Red Fiend sword. At the same time, he injected the primordial energy in his spiritual sea into the Red Fiend's sword. Chi. The Red Demon's sword contained a terrifying fluctuation of Yuan Qi. As it rubbed against the air, it made a hissing sound. Eat my sword. Mighty Vajra Sword Ray. Ning Yu shouted in a low voice and immediately slashed out 2 waist-thick sword rays. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 sword lights shot out, one towards Emo Shan and the other towards Di Peng. On the surface, the power of the sword gleam was very strong, and its aura was also very strong. Di Peng and Emo Shan felt as if they were facing a great enemy, especially its name. The two of them hurriedly retreated, not daring to face the sword ray head-on. Xiao. Seeing Di Peng and Emo Shan retreat, Ning Yu suddenly changed his direction and charged towards the Tower of Yuzu. At the same time, Ning Yu shouted, hurry to the Ascension Pagoda, we can't stay here for long. Rumble. Ning Yu's words caused Di Peng and Emo Shan's faces to turn ashen. They were on standby, thinking about how to block Ning Yu's sword gleam. On the other hand, Ning Yu was trying to escape into the Tower of Yuzuan. The aunt could endure it, but the uncle couldn't. Uncle can endure it, but I can't. Stop him. No matter what, we can't let Ning Yu enter the Tower of Yuzu. Di Peng and Emo Shan shouted crazily. If Ning Yu really hid in the Yuzuan Pagoda, they definitely wouldn't dare to enter. Even Tian Mingtao and Di Wuba had died in the Tower of Yuzuan, so what was the difference between them going in and sending themselves to their death? Thus, they could only stop Ning Yu before he entered the Tower of the Ascension of Yuzuan. Otherwise, all their efforts today would be in vain. Don't worry with me here, he can't escape. Although Jin Xiong was fighting with Quang Zhan, his attention was not too far away from Ning Yu. If Ning Yu fought with Di Peng and the others, Jin Xiong would not stop them. But if Ning Yu wanted to enter the Tower of Yuzu, Jin Xiong would definitely stop him. Stop right there. The energy in Jin Xiong's sea of consciousness flew out as he threw a punch, along with a violent gale, towards Ning Yu's path. The entrance to the Tower of Yuzuan was only so big, so Jin Xiong wasn't afraid that Ning Yu wouldn't retreat. I'm sorry, but I've already taken control of the Tower of Yuzuan, so I can enter from any level. Ning Yu's silhouette flickered as he flew towards the second level of the Tower of Yuzuan. I can enter from any level? But just when Ning Yu changed his direction, before he could even get close to the Tower of Yuzuan, the space beside him suddenly cracked. Shortly after, a massive tail swept towards him. Damn it! The sudden change had caused Ning Yu's face to drastically change. Without any time to think, Ning Yu immediately retreated. He couldn't muster any thoughts of resisting. Ning Yu wasn't a fool, so he knew how powerful the owner of that tail was. That person's cultivation was at least at the pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign. With Ning Yu's current state, he couldn't even deal with a 3rd grade Earth Sovereign, not to mention a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign. Boom! Just when Ning Yu was about to be struck by the tail, the Berserker swiftly moved and blocked that fatal attack for Ning Yu. Crack! The void was torn apart, and a huge creature slowly emerged from the void. Dark golden profound tiger. Looking at the silhouette that walked out, Ning Yu's face turned extremely unsightly and his heart sank to the bottom. Speaking of which, it wasn't the first time that Ning Yu had met this dark golden profound tiger. Not long ago, Ning Yu had even fought with it in the massive city of the Void Realm. Under the help of the 2 wolves, the dark golden profound tiger didn't have a good time. I'll tear you apart. When the dark golden profound tiger saw Ning Yu, it was stunned for a moment. Soon, the dark golden profound tiger raised its head and roared, "You stole my sovereign blood essence in the void realm. Now I'll devour you alive." "Who do you want to devour?" Just when the dark golden profound tiger roared, the space beside Ningyu cracked again. A young woman in a light blue dress appeared in everyone's sight. "Who are you?" The dark golden profound tiger's face turned grave when it saw the blue-clothed woman. Although the dark golden profound tiger had recovered to the pinnacle 9th grade Earth Sovereign, it didn't take the initiative to attack the young woman. On the contrary, it said, "It's best that you don't interfere in the grudge between me and Ningyu. What if I insist on interfering today?" The young woman's tone was emotionless. "If you insist on interfering, I'll kill you as well." The dark golden profound tiger didn't fall for it. It gritted its teeth and charged out. "Get the hell back!" Seeing that the dark golden profound tiger was about to reach her, the young woman waved her wrist and a silver-white iron fan appeared in her hand. After injecting some energy into the fan, the young woman waved it. Rustle! As the iron fan waved, a gale blew and sand and stones were blown away. The dark golden profound tiger was pushed back by the gale. Rustle! Rustle! At this critical moment, Jin Xiong, Di Peng, and Mo Shan quickly took action and stood behind the dark golden profound tiger to block the gale. The four of them had to join forces to block the gale. Not long after, the gale dissipated and Di Peng and the rest let out a long breath. "Fairy Yunxi, what's your relationship with this brat? He's actually worth you taking out the 100-Flower Palace's treasure, the 100-Flower Fan." Although they managed to block the gale, the faces of Di Peng and the rest were unsightly. Because they recognized the young woman, they also knew what the silver-white fan in her hand was. The 100-Flower Fan was the treasure of the 100-Flower Palace. Generally speaking, such a treasure wouldn't be taken out easily. Since Fairy Yunxi took out the 100-Flower Fan, there were only two possibilities. Ningyu had a good relationship with the 100-Flower Palace, or the 100-Flower Palace was about to be disbanded. No matter which possibility it wasn't good for Di Peng and the rest. They had gone through a lot of hardships to attack Nebula Academy. If Ningyu was rescued just like that, where would they put their faces? "It's fine. I just don't like you." Fairy Yunxi glanced at Ningyu and said, "Can you put away the Yuzu Pagoda? If you can, then put it away. I'll take you away." "No problem." Ningyu didn't want to stay any longer. He chanted a technique and pointed at the air. In an instant, the Yuzu Pagoda shrank and flew into his hand. "Let's go." Chapter 14-19. The army's attack, you're letting them go just like that? Mo Shan's jaw dropped when he saw Fairy Yunxi bring Ningyu and Quangzhan along with the pagoda of Yuzuan. "Don't let them go? Do you have a plan?" Jin Xiong's face was ashen. He waved his hand and said, "Let's go." Whoosh! As Jin Xiong said this, all the Jin family powerhouses in the area followed him and headed towards the capital of the Thousand-Leaf Empire. Jin Xiong's heart was heavy. The Jin family had suffered heavy losses this time, and he didn't know how to explain it to his ancestor. However, Jin Xiong still held great hope in his heart. Jin Xinghai was in the pagoda of Yuzuan, and he believed that as long as he had enough time, he would definitely be able to leave the pagoda of Yuzuan. After all, Jin Xinghai's cultivation was in the middle phase, heavenly sovereign realm. Di Peng and Jin Xiong had similar thoughts. Their ancestor, Di Patian, was also trapped in the pagoda of Yuzuan. Although Di Patian was only an early-stage Sky Supreme, he wasn't any weaker than an ordinary mid-stage Sky Supreme. As long as their ancestor was in the pagoda of Yuzuan, hope wouldn't be extinguished. Roar! The most furious one was the dark gold mystic tiger. Just as it was about to devour Ningyu, someone came to save him. The tiger roared at the sky and said, "Prepare the sovereign's blood essence for me. I want to break through to the sky's supreme realm and flatten the 100 Flowers Palace. Ningyu didn't know what was happening at Nebula Academy. At this moment, he was in an incomparably dark space, and his surroundings were pitch black. Crack, crack, crack. At the same time, the sound of space cracking rang in his ears. Ningyu knew that he was rushing through a spatial tunnel. Ningyu's condition was not bad, because in his previous life, he often tore through the void to escape, and each time, he would stay in the space for a long time. Senior Yunshi, are we going to the 100 Flowers Palace? Inside the spatial crack, Quang Zhan stood beside Ningyu, responsible for protecting Ningyu. Ningyu said to Yunshi. When he was in the empty realm, Ningyu learned about the current situation of the 100 Flowers Palace from Qing Ling. In the 100 Flowers Palace, there were no compromising factions, and they were led by Fairy Yunshi. To Giant Shield City. Fairy Yunshi did not speak much. She only told Ningyu the location of a place, and then she did not speak again. Ningyu was slightly stunned because he knew nothing about Giant Shield City. Giant Shield City is the second largest city under the Flower Palace. Just because Fairy Yunshi didn't say anything didn't mean that Ningyu couldn't find out. Quang Zhan was a native cultivator of the Danqing continent. Furthermore, he had reached the 9th grade Earth Supreme Realm, so he had naturally heard of the Giant Shield City. I see. After listening to Mad Warrior's explanation, Ningyu nodded slightly. There were two major cities under the 100 Flowers Palace, Giant Shield City and 100 Flowers City. Judging from the current situation, 100 Flowers City was definitely under the control of a mysterious person. As for Giant Shield City, it was controlled by Fairy Yunshi. I wonder if Lu Wei and the rest are in Giant Shield City. Taking a deep breath, Ningyu's brows were slightly solemn. Ever since they parted ways in the Cross Canyon, Ningyu had not seen Lu Wei and the rest. Although Sage Spiritual Su and the Sword of Evil were following them, Ningyu was still worried. After all, the Danqing continent was extremely dangerous, and the 100 Flowers Palace had basically fallen. If the mysterious person controlling the 100 Flowers Palace sent people to surround Lu Wei and the rest, the situation would become very dangerous. Forget it, let's go to Giant Shield City first. Ningyu was very clear that it was useless to think about it now. The only thing he could do now was to go to Giant Shield City first, and then come up with a long-term plan. Maybe Lu Wei and the rest had already arrived at Giant Shield City? Otherwise, there was no reason for Fairy Yunshi to come to Nebula Academy to save him. Different situations call for different actions. Ningyu released his perception and paid close attention to the changes in his surroundings. Although Crazy Warrior was protecting him, Ningyu did not dare to be careless. There could be danger at any time in the spatial rift. If he was not careful, even a Sky Supreme powerhouse could die inside. Giant Shield City. Very, very big. Strictly speaking, Giant Shield City belonged to the Thousand Leaf Empire. However, Giant Shield City was located at the border between the Thousand Leaf Empire and the Cloudy Wind Empire. A long time ago, the Thousand Leaf Empire was jointly controlled by the 100 Flowers Palace and the Emperor Palace. Ever since the rise of the Thousand Leaf Empire's Jin family, the 100 Flowers Palace and the Emperor Palace gradually withdrew from the Thousand Leaf Empire and handed the empire over to the Jin family. Among them, the 100 Flowers Palace withdrew to the border between the Thousand Leaf Empire and the Cloudy Wind Empire, obtaining two major cities, Giant Shield City and 100 Flowers City. As for the Emperor Palace, they withdrew to the hinterland of the Thousand Leaf Empire, Mount Matu. Mount Matua, the Thousand Leaf Ridge, and the Rakshasa Cave were known as the three most ominous places of the Thousand Leaf Empire. The Thousand Leaf Empire's Jin family naturally had no objections to the Emperor Palace's decision to take root in Mount Matu. At this moment, Giant Shield City was silent. The city gates had long been closed. On the city tower, groups of martial artists were waiting in formation, as if they were facing a great enemy. Qingling, can Fairy Yun she really invite Master Xingyun to Nebula Academy? On an empty space on the city tower, 4 martial artists stood side by side. An old man looked into the distance with a grave expression and said in a deep voice, "They might attack in half an hour. I'm 90% sure." Qingling's expression was also very grave. Giant Shield City only had Fairy Yunxi, a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Supreme. Once she left, Giant Shield City would be extremely empty. They had done a good job keeping it a secret. Who would have thought that just 3 hours ago, they would receive a secret report that the experts of 100 Flowers City were about to attack? Upon hearing this news, everyone's first reaction was that someone had betrayed Giant Shield City. Therefore, while Qingling and the others searched for the traitor, they mobilized martial artists to guard Giant Shield City and tried to find a way to contact Fairy Yunxi. It didn't matter that Fairy Yunxi had left. The most important thing was that she had taken the 100 Flowers fan with her. There was a great array in Giant Shield City, and to open it, they could only rely on the 100 Flowers fan. "Okay, I choose to believe you." Hearing that they were 90% sure, the old man nodded and said, "Everyone, keep your spirits up. As long as Fairy Yun she can invite Master Xingyun, we won't have to hide here anymore. We can fight back. Fight back. Fight back." The old man's words contained a terrifying fluctuation of luck, so all the martial artists in Giant Shield City could hear it clearly. In Giant Shield City, the strongest expert was Fairy Yunxi, a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Supreme. With the 100 Flowers fan, her battle prowess was comparable to an ordinary Early Sky Supreme. As for the old man, his name was Perfected Demon. He was also a pinnacle 9th grade Earth Supreme, but his battle prowess was slightly weaker than Fairy Yunxi's. After all, Perfected Demon didn't have a treasure like the 100 Flowers fan. Of course, some people thought that Perfected Demon was strong enough to be on par with Fairy Yunxi. Rustle, rustle, rustle. When the martial artists repeated the words for the 3rd time, a sudden change occurred. Chapter 1420. Meet head-on, are you here? Gazing at the billowing dust in the distance, Reverend G. Mo's expression was grave. He took a deep breath and said solemnly, "Be on guard. Walla." As soon as GMO finished speaking, the many cultivators on the walls of Giant Shield City started to move. "How long can we defend?" Qingling asked with an ugly expression. From the rumbling dust in the distance, one could tell that the 100 Flowers City was coming with great ferocity. Perhaps the palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace had already been controlled by a mysterious expert. If they were really controlled, then it would be meaningless for them to persist here. The reason why they persisted was so that they could one day attack and rescue the palatial mistress. If we defend with all our might, we should be able to hold on for 2 to 3 hours, but we will suffer heavy losses. To prevent others from hearing it, Dao Ren's tone was solemn as he continued, but all of this is based on the fact that there aren't more than 2 pinnacle 9th grade Earth sovereigns on the other side. Otherwise, the city gate would be swiftly breached. Qingling and the others fell silent when they heard Taoist Master Qi Mo's words. On their side, there was only Taoist Master Mo, who was a peak 9th grade Earth Supreme. Even if Taoist Shin Mo was powerful, he could only resist 2 pinnacle 9th grade Earth sovereigns. Just as Taoist Shin Mo had said, if 2 pinnacle 9th grade Earth sovereigns came from the 100 Flowers City, they would be doomed. The army of 100 Flowers City rushed over, and it didn't take long for them to descend below Giant Shield City. Whoosh! In front of the army, 4 figures floated side by side in the air. Vigorous yuan energy undulations pulsed from the bodies of these 4 figures. Amongst them, the old man leading the group had his aura restrained. Evidently, he was a pinnacle 9th grade Earth sovereign. As for the other 3 cultivators, they weren't pinnacle 9th grade Earth sovereigns, but they weren't any weaker than late phase 9th grade Earth sovereigns. Perfected Devil, I'll give you one last chance. Open the city gates and submit to us. The old man in the lead smirked and said sinisterly, otherwise, I'll flatten Giant Shield City. Su Ching, you want to flatten Giant Shield City? Perfected being GMO stomped on the ground and leaped up suddenly, hovering above the city tower as he said coldly, I can kill you with a single hand. I didn't expect your strength to improve again. Su Ching wasn't angered by Taoist GMO's words. He shrugged and said, don't blame me for not warning you. I'll tell you a secret. Your palace master is on the verge of collapse. Voila. Although Su Ching said it was a secret, that was not the case. His voice was very loud, so loud that all the martial artists in Giant Shield City could hear him clearly. Palace master can't hold on any longer? I don't think so. Didn't the palace lord return? Palace lord didn't come back. The one who came back was Xielan. Palace lord only left a wisp of his soul power in Xielan's body. If the palace lord really can't hold on any longer, what's the point of us persisting here? In Giant Shield City, everyone was discussing fervently. However, in the midst of the discussion, everyone shifted their gazes towards the palace in the center of Giant Shield City. Because 3 days ago, a group of more than 10 people suddenly descended here. Immortal GMO ordered for all news to be sealed. Who would have thought that the news would still spread like wildfire, causing Taoist Master Heng Mo to be badly battered? At the critical moment, Fairy Yun she had brought the 100 Flowers fan to Nebula Academy. Now, Su Ching had brought a large number of martial artists to besiege Giant Shield City. With all sorts of things happening together, if not for Taoist Master Heng Mo's strong willpower, he would have long been unable to hold on. Try to appease the people in the city and ferret out those who are fanning the flames. Taoist Master Heng Mo transmitted his voice to Ching Ling, who was on the city tower. Kill those who deserve to be killed. Don't be soft-hearted. What's wrong? Is there a fire in your backyard? Seeing the change in Taoist Master Heng Mo's expression, Su Ching revealed an exaggerated expression. Do you want my army to go in and help you quell the chaos? Do you dare to fight me? Taoist Master Heng Mo completely ignored Su Ching's words. He released his aura and said in a deep voice, why wouldn't I dare? Su Ching did not look nervous at all. He took a step forward and said, let's make an agreement first. As long as I can defeat you, you have to open the city gates and let us in. No problem. Taoist Master Heng Mo nodded. Watch out. Seeing that Taoist Master Heng Mo had agreed, Su Cheng's figure flashed and he charged at Taoist Master Heng Mo at an extremely shocking speed. Su Cheng was also a peak 9th grade Earth Supreme and was extremely powerful. Rumor had it that Su Cheng had already advanced to a half-step Heavenly Supreme and was recently thinking of ways to break through to the Heavenly Supreme realm. Of course, these were all rumors and might not be true. Rumble. In midair, Su Ching and Taoist Master Heng Mo instantly clashed. You've actually advanced to a half-step Heavenly Supreme. As soon as the two clashed, Taoist Master Heng Mo realized that something was wrong. Su Ching, who was a peak 9th grade Earth Supreme, was no match for him. However, Su Ching, who was a half-step Heavenly Supreme, could fight him head-on and might even have a chance to defeat him. Taoist Master Heng Mo did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. He punched out repeatedly, wanting to get rid of Su Ching as soon as possible. Unfortunately, after advancing to a half-step Heavenly Supreme, Su Cheng's reaction speed and vitality were comparable to Taoist Master Heng Mo. Taoist Master Heng Mo did not gain any advantage in the battle. Taoist Master Heng Mo, after forcing Taoist Master Heng Mo back with a single move, the corners of Su Cheng's mouth rose. I originally thought that you had already advanced to the Heavenly Supreme realm. Who would have thought that you would still be so stubborn? It seems that I've prepared a little too much. Prepared a little too much? Taoist Master Heng Mo's heart skipped a beat. Su Cheng's meaning was clear. He felt that he had advanced to the heavenly supreme realm, so he had made ample preparations to attack Giant Shield City. In that case, Su Qing should have at least a heavenly supreme expert on his side. Thinking of this, Taoist Master Heng Mo's heart sank to the bottom. If a heavenly supreme expert really came, he would not be able to kill him even if he fought with his life. Only by burning his blood essence and executing a self-killing secret technique could he contend against them. It would be great if I had a suitable weapon. Taoist Master Heng Mo's eyes were extremely grave. The people of Giant Shield City knew that Taoist Master Heng Mo was strong, but they did not know exactly how strong he was. Only Taoist Master Heng Mo had a deep understanding of his own strength. If Fairy Yun she did not use the 100 Flowers fan, she would not be a match for him. In fact, even if Fairy Yun she used the 100 Flowers fan, she could only fight to a draw with him. Otherwise, why would Fairy Yun she take the risk to take the 100 Flowers fan with her? Forget it, there's no point. Please step forward and kill Taoist Master Heng Mo. Su Qing shrugged his shoulders and respectfully said to the void beside him. Rumble. The void suddenly split open, and a slightly thin cultivator appeared before everyone's eyes. A heavenly supreme. The thin cultivator's cultivation had reached the terrifying heavenly supreme realm. Chapter 1421. Chapter 1421. Chapter 1421. This aura, when the thin cultivator appeared, perfected devil opened his mouth slightly and his expression instantly darkened. The reason why perfected devil had such an expression wasn't because he was afraid of the thin cultivator, but because the aura emanating from the thin cultivator was similar to that of the mysterious expert who controlled the palace master of the 100 Flowers Palace. The aura of the mysterious expert who controlled the palatial Lord Centauria Palace Master wasn't much different from this aura. Both came from the same place. Spiritual Master GMO instantly made a judgment. Su Qing, you asked me to come here just to deal with this trash? After appearing, the skinny cultivator first glanced at Sage Chaos Demon. Then, he said disdainfully, my time is limited. It is best that you do not trouble me with people like him in the future. This is the only one. There will be no next time, Su Qing said hurriedly, not daring to be slow at all. As long as they could attack Giant Shield City and disperse the wisp of soul force that the palace mistress of the 100 Flowers had left in Xielan's body, then the 100 Flowers Palace would fall completely. Su Qing was still thinking of seeking a good job when the 100 Flower Palace fell into enemy hands. He would definitely not offend the thin martial artist. Alright. I'll go kill that old man first. You guys quickly complete the task Master gave you. The skinny cultivator obviously didn't want to talk nonsense with Su Qing here. His figure shot out and rushed towards Tao Master GMO. In the first move, the thin martial artist did not use his full strength. Taoist Master GMO was only a peak 9th grade Earth Supreme, so he wasn't worthy of him using his full strength. In their race, almost all heavenly sovereigns could instantly kill Earth sovereigns. Even though he was not a peerless genius of his tribe, he was still one of the best. Remember to be smarter in your next life. There are some people you can't afford to offend. The thin martial artist clenched his right fist and punched towards Reverend G Mo's head. Remember, my name is Tuahi. I don't care if you're Tuaha or Niohi. You want to kill me? Do you think it's that easy? GMO didn't care about Tuaha or Niohi. It wasn't like he hadn't fought with heavenly sovereigns before. If any heavenly supreme could kill him, then he, Tao Master GMO, would be too weak. Big violent fist. Reverend GMO injected the vital energy in his sea of consciousness into his wrist, which inevitably collided with Tuahi's fist. Bang! The two fists collided, and the two figures retreated rapidly. Although Tuahi had the upper hand in terms of the distance he had retreated, he was still able to maintain his composure. However, Tuahi was not satisfied. If a heavenly sovereign like him couldn't defeat a pinnacle ninth-grade Earth sovereign in a single punch, how would he maintain his footing in the Tuaw clan? You have completely infuriated me. Tuaw he took a deep breath and said coldly, for the sake of rewarding you, I've decided to swallow you alive. As soon as he finished speaking, Tuaw he transformed into his true form. Rock. Perfected Devil was slightly stunned when he saw Tuaw he's true form. Tuaw he's true form was that of a rock, which greatly exceeded Taoist Master Ji Mo's expectations. The rock was known for its speed and charging power. Originally, Taoist Master Ji Mo's advantage was speed, but now that Tuaw he had transformed into his true form, Taoist Master Ji Mo's advantage instantly disappeared. Kill! Flapping his wings, Tuaw he's figure streaked across the sky, charging fiercely toward Reverend GMO Tuaw. He used his full strength for the second attack. He wanted to kill Perfected Being Chaos Devil. Poochie! Under Tuaw he's powerful attack, Perfected Being Chaos Devil spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale. You're still too inexperienced to fight me. Tuaw he did not continue his attack, but turned back into his human form and said, Su Ching, he has already lost 50% of his fighting strength. Go and capture him. I'll bring him back to the Flower Palace. No problem. Su Ching rubbed his shoulders, eager to give it a try. Back in the Flower Palace, Su Ching and Perfected Devil weren't on good terms, and they often fought. Back then, Su Ching's strength wasn't too strong, and he wasn't Perfected Devil's opponent. But now, he had advanced to the half-step Heavenly Supreme Realm, while Perfected Devil was heavily injured. Such a good opportunity was truly hard to come by. Thus, Su Ching swiftly charged out, wanting to capture Perfected Devil. You're destined to suffer now that you've fallen into my hands, Su Ching said sinisterly as he charged out. Rustle! 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 Just when Su Ching was about to grab Perfected Devil, 3 figures suddenly appeared on the city wall of Giant Shield City. The cultivation of the 3 figures were late-stage 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns. Their goal was clear: to rescue Perfected Devil. Whoosh! However, the 3 late-stage 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns on Su Ching's side were already waiting. As soon as the cultivators on the city wall rushed down, they charged out and engaged in battle. Su Ching, do you really think you can capture me? Suddenly, Taoist Master Harmony Devil raised his head and looked at Su Ching, who was dashing over, and he spoke indifferently. Su Ching's heart skipped a beat when he was stared at by Perfected Devil. He vaguely felt that something was amiss. However, with Tuaw he holding the line, and Perfected Devil was heavily injured, Su Ching didn't believe that anything would happen. You won't be able to escape today. Su Ching's gaze was firm as he punched his right fist at Perfected Devil's chest. Right at this moment, an unexpected event occurred. Suddenly, Reverend GMO took out a silver-white flying sword from his bosom. The flying sword wasn't too long, but it was unusually hard. When Su Ching was half a step away from Perfected Devil threw out the silver-white flying sword. The silver-white flying sword was so fast that it could almost catch up to ordinary heavenly sovereigns. Crack! A crisp sound rang out. Ah! Immediately after, Su Ching's miserable shriek resounded in the area like a pig being slaughtered. Looking down at his palm that had fallen to the ground, Su Ching's eyes were filled with horror. His right hand was chopped off because of his carelessness. Come back! Su Ching growled and grabbed at the void with his left hand, trying to grab his severed right hand. You want to get your right hand back? Dream on! Perfected Devil's eyes turned extremely cold. He controlled the silver-white flying sword and slashed at Su Ching's right hand again. Crack! Crack! This time, Perfected Devil didn't hold back. The flying sword slashed back and forth on Su Ching's right hand, directly chopping it into several pieces. Su Ching felt like dying when he saw Perfected Devil's actions. His right hand was completely destroyed because of his carelessness. I'm going to skin you alive. Su Ching screamed like a madman and charged at Perfected Devil. Die. When Perfected Devil attacked, he didn't forget to look at Tuo He. No matter what, Tuo He was a heavenly supreme. If Tuo He wanted to protect Su Ching, Perfected Devil would still retreat. As it turned out, Perfected Devil was thinking too much. Not only did Tuo He not attack, but he even crossed his arms in front of his chest, looking like he was watching a show. There's actually such an expert in the Pill Formation mainland. Just nice, I can take him back and study him. Chapter 1422. The Dark Emperor appears. A great battle broke out. Outside Giant Shield City, a fierce battle broke out between Dao Master GMO and Su Ching. Dao Master GMO could have killed Su Ching, but he didn't. He was stalling for time. Because once Su Ching was killed, he would have to face Tuo He. Tuo He couldn't be compared to Su Ching. Killing him was harder than ascending to the heavens. Drip. Time passed. With every passing second, Su Ching's injuries worsened. However, Su Ching was like a cockroach that couldn't be killed. On the other side of the battlefield, 3 late 9th grade Earth Sovereigns from Giant Shield City were fighting against 3 9th grade Earth Sovereigns from 100 Flowers City. The 3 late 9th grade Earth Sovereigns from Giant Shield City were clearly at a disadvantage. However, it wasn't possible for the late 9th grade Earth Sovereigns from 100 Flowers City to win in a short time. The scene became a little strange. Both battlefields seemed to be calm and peaceful. Gradually, the 3 9th grade Earth Sovereigns from 100 Flowers City realized that something was wrong. They wanted to force the cultivators from Giant Shield City to retreat and help Su Ching. However, the 3 9th grade Earth Sovereigns from 100 Flowers City were fighting with the mentality of certain death. How could they escape so easily? Under Dao Master G Mo's powerful attacks, Su Ching kept vomiting blood and his body was on the verge of collapse. On the other hand, although Dao Master GMO was also injured, they were all superficial wounds. Senior Tuo, please help Elder Su. When a 5th grade Earth Sovereign of the 100 Flowers City saw Su Ching's miserable state, he braced himself and took a step forth. This 5th grade Earth Sovereign was Tuo He's disciple. He had offended many people in 100 Flowers City. If Su Ching was killed, he would definitely be finished. You want me to help that trash? Tuo He turned around and looked at Su Ching's disciple. Give me a reason. My master is the City Lord of 100 Flowers City and the main force of the attack on Giant Shield City. Also, the Great Master thinks highly of him. If he... Su Ching's disciple said. Slap. Before Su Ching's disciple could finish his words, his face turned red as a palm imprint appeared on it. The Great Master thinks highly of Su Ching? Why didn't I know? Tuo He said coldly. Remember this, all of you are our dogs. Whatever we tell you to do, you have to do. Everyone lowered their heads upon hearing Tuo He's words. What's your name? Tuo He looked at Su Ching's disciple and asked. Li Xiu. Su Ching's disciple said honestly. A grown man actually has this kind of name. Die. Tuo He's eyes suddenly turned cold. His right hand pointed at the void, and in an instant the void exploded. Xiu. Soon after, a cold light struck Li Xiu's head. Why you can't kill me? Li Xiu's expression changed drastically, and she hurriedly said, Whoosh. Even though Li Xiu screamed, she couldn't escape the fate of being killed. The cold light pierced through his forehead and killed him on the spot. Li Xiu. Originally, Su Ching was wholeheartedly fighting against Spiritual Master GMO, but Spiritual Master GMO just so happened to strike his chest, causing his body to slightly dodge. This flash directly allowed him to see Li Xiu's miserable state. Li Xiu was his last disciple and had cultivated to the 5th grade Earth Supreme Realm at such a young age. Even in the Pill Formation continent, he was an absolute genius. Such a genius martial artist was actually killed by he so casually? You dare to be distracted while fighting me? That's not good. How could Spiritual Master GMO let go of such a good opportunity? He clenched his right hand into a fist and suddenly punched out. Not good. Su Ching was greatly alarmed and tried to block in a fluster. Crack. Alas, it was obviously too late for Su Ching to block it now. His chest was struck by Spiritual Master GMO and he was directly sent flying. Go! Spiritual Master GMO swung the silver-white flying sword and chased after Su Ching. Chi! The silver-white flying sword rubbed against the void, emitting a hissing sound and arriving in front of Su Ching in the blink of an eye. Under Su Ching's horrified gaze, the silver-white flying sword stabbed into his heart. Su Ching spat out a large mouthful of blood, but he did not die on the spot. Instead, he glanced at Tuahi, wanting him to save him. In our eyes, you're no different from a dog. Tuahi's reply to Su Ching was a mocking voice. Pooh! Su Ching's eyes rolled back as the flames of adversity attacked his heart, and he died on the spot. Slap! Slap! All right, I've played enough. Return to the Flower Palace with me now, and I'll spare your life. He patted his hands together and walked slowly towards Spiritual Master GMO, otherwise you might die here. Who? Suddenly, Tuahi's expression changed, and he clenched his right hand into a fist and suddenly smashed it towards the space beside him. Swoosh! Swoosh! Tuahi's punch directly forced out two figures. A human and dog combination? Tuahi was slightly stunned when he saw the two figures that had suddenly appeared, and then he said, "The dog is a grade 5 human exalt, and the human is a grade 9 human exalt. They're comparatively weaker." The appearance of these two figures didn't just stun Tuahi, even Spiritual Master GMO was slightly stunned. Don't you think you and your dog are too weird? It's fine if you're strong, but the crux is that both of you are extremely weak, and aren't even at the Earth Exalt realm. Is your appearance any different from courting death? We're finished. Our positioning failed. Both the human and dog were slightly stunned when they sensed the terrifying figures in the surroundings. That's right, the human and dog were the Dark Emperor and Zhan Ba. Ever since they parted ways with Ningyu, the two of them had finally arrived at the Thousand Leaves Empire after going through a lot of hardship. In the Thousand Leaves Empire, they found many treasures of heaven and earth, and everyone's strength improved. The Dark Emperor advanced from grade 4 human exalt to grade 5 human exalt, and Zhan Ba advanced to grade 9 human exalt. Originally, they thought that they could help Ningyu after advancing, so they found a broken formation and teleported to the 100 Flowers Palace's territory. The Dark Emperor knew very well that Ningyu would definitely head to the 100 Flowers Palace, which was why they came here. Who would have thought that they would encounter a huge battle as soon as they arrived? Misfortune really never came alone. Sorry, please continue. We didn't mean to disturb you. Zhan Ba revealed an apologetic expression and said, "May I ask if this is Giant Shield City?" "That's right, this is Giant Shield City." He was rather interested in this human and dog. "I'm a Sky Supreme. Aren't you guys afraid of seeing me?" Since that was the case, he decided to have some fun with this human and dog. "Sorry to disturb you. Our destination is Giant Shield City." Zhan Ba apologized again. After that, Zhan Ba and the Dark Emperor calmly walked toward Giant Shield City. The actions of the two of them made everyone a little confused. They were heading toward Giant Shield City just like that? The people of Giant Shield City were confused. They didn't know if they should open the city gates. The people of 100 Flowers City were confused because they felt that the other party was pretending to be weak. Even he was a little confused. Are they really pretending to be weak? Chapter 1423. Chapter 1423. Chapter 1423. The mantis stalks the cicada, U3, test them out for me. After some thought, he decided to test the Dark Emperor and Zhanba. However, he wasn't the one testing it, but the 3 late-phase 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns. He didn't want any unforeseen events to occur. If the Dark Emperor and Zhanba were really pretending to be pigs to eat tigers, wouldn't he be finished if he acted rashly? Keeping an eye on everything was better than anything else. Yes. Although the 3 late-phase 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns were brooding over Su Cheng's death, they didn't dare to disobey He's orders. The 3 late-phase 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns charged towards the Dark Emperor and Zhanba. What he said was a probe, but the 3 of them did not treat it as a simple probe. Their attacks were exceptionally powerful. Almost everyone used their trump cards. Even a lion would use its full strength to catch a rabbit, let alone them. Seeing the Dark Emperor and Zhanba being besieged by the 3 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns of the 100-Flower City, the 3 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns of the Giant Shield City shifted their gazes towards GMO, seeking his opinion. "Help me." Master GMO nodded slightly. "That black dog is very similar to the Dark Emperor Palace Lord spoke of." Since he couldn't figure out Zhanba and the Dark Emperor's identities, he chose to help them. After all, the Palace Lord had said that Ningyu had a powerful black dog with him. It was obvious that Master Devil had taken Zhanba to Ningyu on the spot. No problem. The 3 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns from the Giant Shield City had long wanted to make a move. They didn't know about Ningyu and the Dark Emperor, but they knew very well that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Since the 100-Flower City wanted to kill this man and dog, they had to protect them unconditionally. "You're courting death." For some reason, when the 3 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns of the Giant Shield City made a move, the 3 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns of the 100-Flower City revealed expressions of relief. They immediately turned around and started fighting with the 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns of Giant Shield City. Did we come at the wrong time? The Dark Emperor swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said in a low voice, "It is indeed not the right time." Zhanba nodded. "However, I can sense that Ningyu should be nearby." The Dark Emperor said solemnly. "Are you sure?" Zhanba was surprised, asking hurriedly. "I'm basically certain." The Dark Emperor said, "Think about it, if Ningyu wasn't around, how could the 3 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns help us?" Hearing the Dark Emperor's words, Zhanba's face darkened. "Is that what you meant by basically certain? What a bunch of nonsense. Let's just think of entering Giant Shield City as soon as possible." Zhanba's eyes turned as he thought of a countermeasure. No matter what, since the people of Giant Shield City had helped them, they couldn't disappoint them. Others had gone through untold hardships to help him, but in the end, he still messed around. Wouldn't that disappoint others? Buzz. What Zhanba did not know was that the Dark Emperor's deduction was right. In the void not far away from them, 3 figures stood side by side. "Senior Yunshi, how confident are you that you can defeat that Heavenly Supreme?" Ningyu asked after his gaze lingered on He and Dao Master Harmony Demon for a brief moment. "In terms of strength, I'm not that Heavenly Supreme's match, but I have the 100 Flowers fan." Fairy Yunshi said, "If I join forces with Dao Master Harmony Devil, we can even kill that Heavenly Supreme." "Are you sure you can kill that Heavenly Supreme?" Ningyu was surprised. That was a Heavenly Supreme. In his previous life, he was only a Heavenly Supreme. If it wasn't for the fact that he was extremely weak from refining pills, how could he have been surrounded and killed by 9 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns? Even so, there were still a few 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns who were injured. Ningyu could sense that the Heavenly Supreme in the distance was only slightly weaker than him in his previous life. If I ambush him, I have a 50% chance of heavily injuring him. Fairy Yun, she said solemnly, as long as I can heavily injure him, then it's not impossible to join forces with Venerable Chaos Devil to kill him. That's right. Ningyu was stunned for a moment before he came to a sudden realization. They were hidden in the void, and the Heavenly Supreme outside hadn't discovered them. Thinking of this, Ningyu couldn't help taking another look at the 100 Flowers fan. The 100 Flowers fan was indeed extraordinary to be able to hide from even a heavenly supreme. If he encountered such a treasure again in the future, he had to be careful. That man and dog, are they your friends? Yun Shi pointed at the Dark Emperor and Zhanba. That's right. The dog is called the Dark Emperor, and the man is called Zhanba. Ningyu nodded. They once went through fire and water with me. Speaking of which, I have to thank you for helping them. You don't have to thank me. It wasn't my intention. Yun Shi shook her head. It wasn't your intention? Ningyu was stunned. In Ningyu's view, the reason why the 3 9th-grade Earth Sovereigns of Giant Shield City acted was because Yun Shi had sent a voice transmission. At first, Ningyu was a little puzzled as to why Yun Shi's voice transmission didn't have any spatial fluctuations. Now that he thought about it, it wasn't Yun Shi's intention. Someone in Giant Shield City knows the Dark Emperor. I know. All of a sudden, Ningyu slapped his thigh and said, Lu Xuan must have arrived at the Giant Shield City. Ningyu's strength was so great that Quang Zhan sucked in a breath of cold air. I'm sorry. Ningyu immediately apologized. It was true that he slapped his thigh, but it was Quang Zhan's thigh. When are we going out? After apologizing, Ningyu asked Fairy Yun Shi. Palatial Lord Centauria and the rest should have found the demon echo grass in Giant Shield City. We need to refine the soul attraction pill as soon as possible so that Palatial Lord Centauria can cultivate the soul attraction art as soon as possible. There's no hurry. Let me contact Tao Master Demon first. We must give that Heavenly Supreme a fatal blow. Yun Shi waved her hand. If you want to enter Giant Shield City, I can send you in first. Don't. I want to see your fight with that Heavenly Supreme. Not knowing why, Ningyu felt a little uneasy. It was a feeling that came from his intuition. That also meant that Ningyu felt that the Heavenly Supreme might have discovered something and had his guard up. Quang Zhan, how confident are you if you fight with that Heavenly Supreme? Ningyu did not tell Yun Shi about his feeling, since he knew that even if he did, Yun Shi wouldn't believe him. Since that's the case, why not contact Quang Zhan first? Hearing Ningyu's voice transmission, Quang Zhan was briefly stunned before he replied, I'm only a 9th-grade Earth Sovereign. I should be able to withstand one move from that Heavenly Supreme. Only one move? Ningyu slightly knitted his brows as he muttered, one move is fine too. If necessary, you can block one move from that Heavenly Supreme. No problem. Although he had many doubts in his heart, Quang Zhan did not ask about it. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.